things by sort of going to the dots and
Oh,
sort
I
of
found it.
renaming
I'm
your
sorry.
thing.
I found it.
Or you can also go to the participant list, and then that also allows you to rename yourself. And also, if anybody has any sort of issues and they have to go back and come back, I will try and be watching and checking into to promote people to panelists. But Maren, it might be a good idea if you also made other people, anybody else want to be the co-host to be able to bring people from attendee to panelist if they come back.
Who knows how to Zoom?
I can do it.
Okay, Kate.
Okay.
So yeah, if you make Kate a co-host and then she can keep an eye out. So if somebody has to go back and come back, you'll probably come in as an attendee, and then the co-host can promote you to panelist.
And they can message me that, right?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can message each other in the chat, and yeah. So well, I think we're recording. I'm not sure. Yeah, it says we're live now. So
Yes.
yeah, welcome to the Instant Shakespeare Company and the Shaw Project collaboration on a reading of Getting Married. And so over to you, David.
Thank you. Getting Married. We are going. Let me have everybody introduce themselves and their character. I'll start since I'm talking. I'm reading the role of Alderman William Collins, the greengrocer.
I'm Bennett Coley. I'm General Bridgenorth.
I'm Paula Hosa. I'm Mrs. George.
Deborah Whitfield, Lesbia Grantham.
Angus Hepburn, the Bishop.
I'm Jonathan Waterfield. I'm reading Soames.
Peter
I'm
Vane,
Drew.
Mrs. Bridgenorth. Sorry, Drew.
That's all right. I thought we're okay. I'm Drew Bolander, and I'm reading St. John Hotchkiss. Sorry.
All good.
I'm Hannah Houski, and I'm reading Edith.
I'm Jordan Tierney, and I'm playing Cecil Sykes.
I'm Kate Mitchell, and I am reading Leo Bridgenorth.
And Larry?
I'm Lawrence Asher, and I'm reading Reginald Bridgenorth. Excuse me, Angus.
Okay, I think that's everybody. I'm going to start. So all of you except, well, Vicki, you don't even have to be present at the moment, but you start things. So
Just for safety, I'm going to stay on.
all right, here I am going to begin with pre-description. On a fine morning in the spring of 1908, the Norman kitchen in the palace of the Bishop of Chelsea looks very spacious and clean and handsome and healthy. The bishop is lucky enough to have a 12th century palace. The palace itself has been lucky enough to escape being carved up into 15th century Gothic or shaved into 18th century ashlar or restored by a 19th century builder and a Victorian architect with a deep sense of the umbrella-like gentlemanliness of 14th century vaulting. The kitchen is the bishop's favorite room. This is not at all because he is a man of humble mind, but because the kitchen is one of the finest rooms in the house. The bishop, excuse me. And if we look into the kitchen, through it, we see facing us the south wall with a small Norman windows and an open door near the corner to the left. Through this door, we have a glimpse of the garden and of a garden chair in the sunshine. In the right-hand corner is an entrance to a vaulted circular chamber with a winding stair leading up through a tower to the upper floors of the palace. In the wall to our right is the immense fireplace with its huge spit like a baby crane and a collection of old iron and brass instruments which pass as the original furniture of the fire, though as a matter of fact, they have been picked up from time to time by the bishop at secondhand shops. In the near wall of the left-hand wall, near end of the left-hand wall, is a small Norman door giving access to the bishop's study, formerly a scullery. Across the middle of the kitchen is a big timber table surrounded by 11 stout rush-bottom chairs. There's a big chair with railed back and sides on the hearth. The kitchen is occupied at present by the bishop's lady, Mrs. Bridgenorth, who is talking to Mr. William Collins, the greengrocer. She is dressed as for some festivity, but she is taking things easily as she sits in the big chair by the hearth, reading the Times.
Do you never feel nervous on these occasions, Collins?
Lord bless you, no, Mum. It would be a joke after marrying 5 of your daughters if I was to get nervous over marrying the last of them.
I've always said you were a wonderful man, Collins.
Oh, Mum.
Yes, I never could arrange anything, a wedding or even a dinner without some hitch or other.
Why should you give yourself the trouble, ma'am? Send for the greengrocer, ma'am. That's the secret of easy housekeeping. Bless you, it's his business. It pays him and you, let alone the pleasure in a house like this. They joke about the greengrocer just as they joke about the mother-in-law, but they can't get along without both.
What a bond between us, Collins.
Oh, bless you, ma'am. There's all sorts of bonds between all sorts of people. You are a very affable lady, ma'am, for a bishop's lady. I've known bishop's ladies that would fairly provoke you to up and cheat them, but nobody would ever forget himself at his place with you, ma'am.
Collins, you are a flatterer. You will superintend the breakfast yourself as usual, of course, won't you?
Yes, yes, bless you, ma'am. Of course, I always do. Oh, them fashionable caterers send down such people as I never did set eyes on. Dukes you would take them for. You see the relatives shaking hands with them and asking them about the family. Actually, ladies saying, "Where have we met before?" And all sorts of confusion. That's my secret in business, ma'am. You could always spot me as the greengrocer. It's a fortune to me in these days when you can't hardly tell who anyone is or isn't. The general, ma'am.
Good morning, Boxer. Another niece to give away. This is the last of them.
Yes, Alice, nothing for the old warrior uncle to do but give away brides to luckier men than himself. Has your sister come yet?
Why do you always call Lesbia my sister? Don't you know that it annoys her more than any of the rest of your tricks?
Tricks? Ah, well, I shall try to break myself of it, but I think she might bear with me in a little thing like that. She knows that her name sticks in my throat. Better to call your sister than to try to call her Oh. Well, call her by her name and make a fool of myself by crying.
Oh, come, Boxer, really, really. We are no longer boys and girls. You can't keep up a broken heart all your life. It must be nearly 20 years since she refused you. And you know that it's not because she dislikes you, but only that she's not a marrying woman.
It's no use. I love her still, and I can't help telling her so whenever we meet, although I know it makes her avoid me.
What does she say when you tell her?
Only that she wonders when I'm going to outgrow it, but I know now that I shall never outgrow it.
Perhaps you would if you married her. I believe you're better as you are, Boxer.
I am a miserable man. I'm really sorry to be a ridiculous old bore, Alice, but when I come to this house for a wedding, to these scenes, to recollections of the past, always to give the bride to somebody else and never to have my bride given to me. May I go into the garden and smoke it off?
Do, Boxer. Oh, here's the cake. I believe it's the same one we had for Florence's wedding.
I can't bear it.
Well, look at that, mum. Ain't it odd that after all the weddings he's given away at, the general can't stand the sight of a wedding cake yet? It always seems to give him the same shock.
Well, it's his last shock. You've married the whole family now, Collins.
Except your sister, ma'am. A fine character of a lady, ma'am, as Miss Grantham. I have an ambition to arrange her wedding breakfast.
She won't marry, Collins.
Bless you, ma'am. They all say that. You and me said it, I'll lay. I did anyhow.
No, marriage came natural to me. I should have thought it did to you too.
No, ma'am, it didn't come natural. My wife had to break me into it. Came natural to her. She's what you might call a regular old hen. Always wants to have a family within sight of her. Wouldn't go to bed unless she knew that they was all safe at home and the door locked and the lights out. Always wants her luggage with her in the carriage. Always goes and makes the engine driver promise her to be careful. She's a born wife and mother, Mum. That's why my children all ran away from home.
Did you ever feel inclined to run away, Collins?
Oh, yes, Mum. Yes, very often. When it came to the point, I couldn't bear to hurt her feelings. She's a sensitive, affectionate, anxious soul, and she was never brought up to know what freedom is to some people. You see, family life is all the life she knows. She's like a bird born in a cage that would die if you let it loose in the woods. But I thought how little it was to a man of my easy temper to put up with her, how deep it would hurt her to think it was because I didn't care for her. I always put off running away till the next time. And so in the end, I never ran away at all. I dare say it was good for me to be took such care of, but it cut me off from my old friends, something dreadful, Mum, especially the women, Mum. She never gave them a chance. She didn't indeed. She never understood that married people should take holidays from one another if they're to keep it all fresh. Not that I ever got tired of them, but my, how I used to get tired of home life sometimes. I used to catch myself envying my brother George. I positively did, Mum.
George was a bachelor then, I suppose.
Oh, bless you, no, Mum. He married a very fine figure of a woman, but she was that changeable and what you might call susceptible. You would not believe. She didn't seem to have any control over herself when she fell in love. She would mope for a couple of days, crying about nothing. Then she would up and say, no matter who was there to hear her, I must go to him, George. And away she would go from her home and her husband without a with your leave or a by your leave.
But do you mean that she did this more than once? That she came back?
Bless you, Mum. She done it 5 times to my own knowledge. And then George gave up telling us about it. He got so used to it.
But did he always take her back?
Well, what could he do, Mum? 3 times out of 4, the men would bring her back the same evening and no harm done. Other times they'd run away from her. What could any man with a heart do but comfort her when she came back crying at the way they dodged her when she threw herself at their heads, pretending they was too noble to accept the sacrifice she was making. George told her again and again that if she'd only stay at home and hold off a bit, they'd be at her feet all day long. She got sensible at last and took his advice. George always liked change of company.
What an odious woman, Collins, don't you think so?
Well, many ladies with a domestic turn thought so and said so, Mum. But I will say for Mrs. George that the variety of experience made her wonderful, interesting. That's when the flighty ones score off the steady ones, Mum. Look at my old woman. She's never known any man but me, and she can't probably know me because she don't know other men to compare me with. Of course, she knows her parents in, well, the way one does know one's parents, not knowing half their lives, as you might say, whatever thinking that they was ever young. And she knew her children as children, never thought of them as independent human beings till they ran away and nigh broke her heart for a week or 2. But Mrs. George, she came to know a lot about men of all sorts and ages. For the older she got, the younger she liked them. And it certainly made her interesting and gave her a lot of sense. I've often taken her advice on things when my poor old woman wouldn't have been a bit of use to me.
I hope you don't tell your wife that you go elsewhere for advice.
Lord bless you, Mum. I'm that fond of my old Matilda that I never tell her anything at all for fear of hurting her feelings. You see, she's such an out-and-out wife and mother, but she's hardly a responsible human being out of her house, except when she's marketing.
Does she approve of Mrs. George?
Oh, Mrs. George gets round her. Mrs. George can get round anybody if she wants to. And then Mrs. George is very particular about religion. And she's a clairvoyant.
A clairvoyant?
Oh, yes, Mum. All you have to do is to mesmerize her a bit, and off she goes into a trance and says the most wonderful things. Not things about herself, but as if it was the whole human race giving you a bit of its mind. Oh, wonderful, Mum, I assure you. You couldn't think of a game that Mrs. George isn't up to.
Good morning, dear big sister.
Good morning, dear little sister.
Good morning, Collins. How well you are looking and how young.
That's only my professional habit at a wedding, miss. You should see me at a political dinner. I look nigh 70. Time's getting on, Mum. May I send up word from you to Miss Edith to hurry a bit with her dressing?
Do, Collins.
Dear old Collins. Has he told you any stories this morning?
Yes. You were just too late for a particularly thrilling invention of his.
About Mrs. George?
Yes. He says she's a clairvoyant.
I wonder whether he really invented Mrs. George or stole her out of some book.
I wonder.
Where's the Barmecide?
In a study, working away at his new book. He thinks no more now of having a daughter married than of having an egg for breakfast.
Lesbian!
How do you do?
How are you, Boxer? You almost look as gorgeous as the wedding cake.
I make a point of appearing in uniform whenever I take part in any ceremony, as a lesson to the subalterns. It is not the custom in England, but it ought to be.
You look very fine, Boxer. What a frightful lot of bravery all these medals must represent.
No, Lesbia, they represent despair and cowardice. I won all the early ones by trying to get killed. Do you know why?
But you had a charmed life.
Yes, a charmed life. Bayonets bent on my buckles. Bullets passed through me and left no trace. That's the worst of modern bullets. I've never been hit by a dum-dum. And when I was only a company officer, I had at least the right to expose myself to death in the field. Now I'm a general, and even that resource is cut off. Now, listen to me, Lesbia, for the 10th and last time.
On Florence's wedding morning 2 years ago, you said for the 9th and last time.
We are 2 years older, Lesbia. I'm 50 and you
Yes,
are...
I know. It's no use, Boxer. When will you be old enough to take no for an answer?
Never, Lesbia, never. You have never given me a real reason for refusing me yet. I once thought it was somebody else. There were lots of fellows after you, but now they've all given up and married. Lesbia, tell me your secret. Why?
Oh, you've been smoking. No, keep away, you wretch.
Yes, for that pipe, I couldn't have faced you without breaking down. It has soothed and nerved me.
Well, it has nerved me to tell you why I'm going to be an old maid.
Don't say that, Lesbia. It's not natural. It's not right.
No, closer, Boxer, please. It may not be natural, but it happens all the same. You'll find plenty of women like me if you care to look for them. Women with lots of character and good looks and money and offers who won't and don't get married. Can you guess why?
Well, I can understand when there is another.
Yes, but there isn't another. Besides, do you suppose I think at my time of life that the difference between one decent sort of man and another is worth bothering about?
The heart has its preferences, Lesbia. One image and one only gets indelibly...
Yes, excuse my interrupting you so often, but your sentiments are so correct that I always know what you're going to say before you finish. You see, Boxer, everybody is not like you. You are a sentimental noodle. You don't see women as they really are. You don't see me as I really am. Now, I do see men as they really are. I see you as you really are.
And don't say that, Lesbia.
I'm a regular old maid. I'm very particular about my belongings. I like to have my own house and to have it to myself. I have a very keen sense of beauty and fitness and cleanliness and order. I am proud of my independence and jealous for it. I have a sufficiently well-stocked mind to be very good company for myself. If I have plenty of books and music, the one thing I could never stand is a great lout of a man smoking all over my house and going to sleep in his chair after dinner and untidying everything. Oh!
But love.
Oh, love. Have you no imagination? Do you think I have never been in love with wonderful men? Heroes, archangels, princes, sages, even fascinating rascals, and had the strangest adventures with them. Do you know what it is to look at a mere real man after that? A man with his boots in every corner and the smell of his tobacco in every curtain.
Well, excuse my mentioning it, but don't you want children?
I ought to have children. I should be a good mother to children. I believe it would pay the country very well to pay me to have children. But the country tells me that I can't have a child in my house without a man in it too. So I tell the country that it will have to do without my children. If I'm to be a mother, I really cannot have a man bothering me to be a wife at the same time.
You know, my dear Lesbia, you know I don't wish to be impertinent, but these are not correct views for an English lady to express.
Well, that is why I don't express them except to gentlemen who won't take any other answer. The difficulty, you see, is that I really am an English lady and am particularly proud of being one.
I'm sure of that, Lesbia, quite sure of it. I never meant
Oh,
to...
my dear Boxer, do please try to think of something else than whether you have offended me and whether you're doing the correct thing as an English gentleman. You are faultless and very dull.
Well, that's what's the matter with me. Not clever, A poor, silly soldier man.
The whole matter is very simple. As I say, I am an English lady, by which I mean that I've been trained to do without what I can't have on honourable terms, no matter what it is.
I really don't understand you, Lesbia.
Then why on earth do you want to marry a woman you don't understand?
I don't know. I suppose I love you.
Well, Boxer, you may love me as much as you like, provided you look happy about it and don't bore me. But you can't marry me, and that's all about it.
It's so frightfully difficult to argue the matter fairly with you without wounding your delicacy by overstepping the bounds of good taste. But surely there are halls of nature.
Don't be ridiculous, Boxer.
Well, how am I to express it? Hang it all, Lesbia. Don't you want a husband?
No, I want children, and I want to devote myself entirely to my children and not to their father. The law will not allow me to do that. So I've made up my mind to have neither husband nor children.
Great heavens, the natural appetites.
As I have said before, an English lady is not the slave of her appetites. That is what an English gentleman seems incapable of understanding.
Well, if you refuse, you refuse. I shall not ask you again. I'm sorry I returned to the subject.
Don't be cross, Boxer.
I'm not cross, only wounded. Lesbia, and when you talk like that, I don't feel convinced. I only feel utterly at a loss.
Well, you know our family rule. When at a loss, consult the greengrocer. Ah, here he is.
Sorry to be so much in and out, miss. I thought Mrs. Bridgenorth was here. The table is ready now for the breakfast, if she would like to see it.
If you're satisfied, Collins, I'm sure she will be.
By the way, Collins, I thought they'd made you an alderman.
So they have, General.
Where's your gown?
I don't wear it in private life, General.
Why? Are you ashamed of it?
No, General. Tell you the truth, I take a pride in it. I can't help it.
Attention! Collins, come here. Do you see my uniform, all my medals?
Yes, General. They strike the eye, as it were.
They are meant to. Very well. Now, you know, don't you, that your services to the community as a greengrocer are as important and as dignified as mine as a soldier.
I'm sure it's very honorable of you to say so, General.
You also know, don't you, that any man who can see anything ridiculous or unmanly or unbecoming in your work or in your civic robes is not a gentleman, but a jumping, bounding, snorting cad.
Well, strictly between ourselves, that is my opinion, General.
Then why not dignify my niece's wedding by wearing your robes?
A bargain's a bargain, General. Mrs. Bridgenorth sent for the greengrocer, not for the alderman. Just as unpleasant to get more than you bargained for as to get less.
I'm sure she will agree with me. I attach importance to this as an affirmation of solidarity in the service of the community. The bishop's apron, my uniform, your robes, the church, the army, and the municipality.
Very well, General. I wonder what my wife will say, miss.
What? Is your wife ashamed of your robes?
No, sir, not ashamed of them, but she grudged the money for them, and she will be afraid of my sleeves getting into the gravy.
Lesbia Boxer, here's a pretty mess.
What's the matter?
Reginald's in London and wants to come to the wedding.
Well, dash my buttons.
All right, let him come.
Let him come. Why, the decree has not been made absolute yet. Is he to walk in here to Edith's wedding, reeking from the divorce court?
It's too bad. No, I can't forgive him, Lesbia, really. A man of Reginald's age with a young wife, the best of girls, and as pretty as she can be, to go off with a common woman from the streets. Ugh!
You must make allowances. What can you expect? Reginald was always weak. He was brought up to be weak. The family property was all mortgaged when he inherited it. He had to struggle along in constant money difficulties, hustled by his solicitors, morally bullied by the Barmecide, and physically bullied by the Boxer, while they too were fighting their own way and getting well trained. You know very well he couldn't afford to marry until the mortgages were cleared and he was over 50. Then, of course, he made a fool of himself marrying a child like Leo.
But to hit her, absolutely to hit her. He knocked her down, knocked her flat on the flower bed in the presence of his gardener. He, the head of the family, the man that stands before the Barmecide and myself as Bridgenorth of Bridgenorth, to beat his wife and to go off with a low woman and to be divorced for it in the face of all England, in the face of my uniform and Alfred's apron. I can never forget what I felt. It was only the king's personal request, virtually a command, that stopped me from resigning my commission. I'd cut Reginald dead if I met him in the street.
Besides, Leo's coming. They'd meet. It's impossible, Lesbia.
Oh, I forgot that. That settles it. He mustn't come.
Of course he mustn't. And you tell him that if he enters this house, I will leave it, and so will every decent man and woman in it.
Mr. Reginald, Mum.
Well, dash my buttons.
Alice, it's no use. I can't stay away from Edith's wedding. Oh, good morning, Lesbia. How are you, Boxer?
I was just telling Alice, sir, that if you entered this house, I should leave it.
Well, don't let me detain you, old chap. When you start calling people sir, you're not particularly good company.
Don't you begin to quarrel. That won't improve the situation.
I think you might have waited until you got my answer, Reggie.
Oh, it's so jolly easy to say no in a letter. Oh, won't you let me stay?
How can I? Leo's coming.
Well, she won't mind.
Won't mind?
Don't talk nonsense, Reggie, and be off with you.
At school, you led a theory that women liked being knocked down, I remember.
You're a nice, chivalrous, brotherly sort of swine, you are.
Mr. Bridgenorth, are you going to leave this house, or am I?
You are, I hope.
Alice, will you allow me to be driven from Edith's wedding by this...
Boxer.
By this respondent? Is Edith to be given away by him?
Certainly not, Reginald. You were not asked to come, and I've asked you to go. You know how fond I am of Leo, and you know what she would feel if she came in and found you here.
Mrs. Reginald, Mum.
No. Ask her to stay, Colin.
How unfortunate.
Oh, dash my buttons.
Good morning. Oh, how do, Alice? Why so gloomy, General? Reggie, what will the King's Proctor say?
Oh, damn the King's Proctor.
Naughty. Well, I suppose I must kiss you, but don't any of you tell. Have you kept all your promises?
Oh, don't begin bothering about those.
Have you kept your promises? Have you rubbed your head with the lotion every night?
Yes, yes, nearly every night.
Nearly, I know what that means. Have you worn your liver pad?
Leo, forgiveness is one of the most beautiful traits in a woman's nature. But there are things that should not be forgiven to a man. Now, when a man knocks a woman down,
A man that would raise his hand to a woman, save in the way of kindness, is unworthy the name of Bridgenorth.
well, if Leo does not mind, of course I've no more to say. But I think that you might, out of consideration for the family, beat your wife in private and not in the presence of the gardener.
What's the good of beating your wife unless there's a witness to prove it afterwards? You don't suppose a man beats his wife for the fun of it, do you? How could she have gotten her divorce if I hadn't beaten her? Nice state of things, that.
Do you mean to tell me that you did it in cold blood, simply to get rid of your wife?
No, I didn't. I did it to get her rid of me. What would you do if you were fool enough to marry a woman 30 years younger than yourself and then found that she didn't care for you and was in love with a young fellow with a face like a mushroom?
He is not! You are most unkind to say I didn't care for you. Nobody could have been fonder of you.
A nice way of showing your fondness. I had to go and dig that flower bed all over with my own hands to soften it. I had to pick all the stones out of it. And then she complained that I hadn't done it properly because she got a worm down her neck. I had to go to Brighton with a poor creature who took a fancy to me on the way down and got conscientious scruples about committing perjury after dinner. I had to put her down in the hotel book as Mrs. Reginald Bridgenorth. Leo's name. Do you know what that feels like to a decent man? Do you know what a decent man feels about his wife's name? How would you like to go into a hotel before all the waiters and people with that on your arm? That it was the poor girl, not that it was the poor girl's fault, of course. Only she started crying because I couldn't stand her touching me. And now she keeps writing to me. And then I'm held up in the public court for cruelty and adultery and turned away from Edith's wedding by Alice and lectured by you, a bachelor, and a precious green one at that. What do you know about it?
Am I to understand that the whole case was one of collusion?
Of course it was. Half the cases are collusions. What are people to do? And what do you take me for, that you should have the cheek to pretend to believe all that rot about my knocking Leo about and leaving off? Oh, you should have seen her.
This is perfectly astonishing to me. Why did you do it? Why did Leo allow it?
You'd better ask her.
I'm sure I never thought it would be so horrid for Reggie. I offered honorably to do it myself and let him divorce me, but he wouldn't. And he said himself that it was the only way to do it, that it was the law, that he should do it that way. I never saw that hateful creature until that day in court. If he had only shown her to me before, I should never have allowed it.
You did this all for Leo's sake, Reggie?
I shouldn't mind a bit if it were for Leo's sake, but I have to do it to make room for that mushroom-faced serpent.
What right had he to do to be made room for? Are you in your senses? What right?
The right of being a young man suitable to a young woman. I had no right at my age to marry Leo. She knew no more about life than a child.
I knew a great deal more about it than a great baby like you. I'm sure I don't know how you'll get on without me, with no one to take care of you. I often lie awake at night thinking about it. And now you've made me thoroughly miserable.
Serve you right. There. Don't go into a tantrum, Leo.
May one ask who is the mushroom-faced serpent?
He isn't!
St. John Hotchkiss, of course.
St. John Hotchkiss? Like he's coming to the wedding?
What? In that case, I'm off.
Oh, no.
Reginald,
no, you must
Don't go, old chap. Not from Edith's wedding.
A moment ago, when I wanted to stay, you were all shoving me out of the house. Now that I want to go, you won't let me.
I shall sell a note to Mr. Hotchkiss not to come.
Oh, Alice! Oh, no.
Oh, well, let her have her way. Let her have her mushroom. Let him come. Let them all come.
So cruel of you to go on pretending that I don't care for you, Reggie.
She explained to me that it was only that she had exhausted my conversation.
My dear girl, all the conversation in the world has been exhausted long ago. Heaven knows I have exhausted the conversation of British Army these 30 years, but I don't leave it on that account.
It's not that I've exhausted it, but he will keep on repeating it when I want to go to read or go to sleep, and St. John amuses me. He's so clever.
The old complaint. You all want geniuses to marry. That this demand for clever men is ridiculous. Someone must marry the plain, honest, stupid fellows. Have you thought of that?
There are such lots of stupid women to marry. Why do they want to marry us? Besides, Reggie knows that I'm quite fond of him. I like him because he wants me, and I like St. John because I want him. I feel that I have a duty to Reggie.
Precisely. You have.
And, of course, St. John has the same duty to me. Oh, how silly the law is. Why can't I marry them both?
Leo!
Well, I love them both. I should like to marry a lot of men. I should like to have Reggie for every day, and St. John for concerts and theatres and going out in the evenings, and some great austere saint for about once a year at the end of the season, and some perfectly blithering idiot of a boy to be quite wicked with. I so seldom feel wicked, and when I do, it's such a pity to waste it merely because it's too silly to confess to a real grown-up man.
This is the kind of thing, you know. Well, there it is.
Alice, this is a job for the Barmecide. Now, he's a bishop. It is his duty to talk to Leo. I can stand a good deal, but when it comes to flat polygamy and polyandry, we ought to do something.
You come here for a moment, Alfred. We're in a difficulty.
Ask Collins. I'm busy.
Collins won't do it. It's something very serious. Do come for a moment, dear.
Oh, good morning, my dear. Hello. Oh, you brought Reginald with you. That's very nice of you. Have you reconciled them, Boxer?
Reconciled them? Why, man, the whole divorce was a put-up job. She wants to marry some fellow named Hotchkiss.
A fellow with a face like a...
You shan't, Reggie! He has a very fine face!
And now she says she wants to marry both of them and lots of other people as well.
I didn't say I wanted to marry them. I only said I should like to marry them.
Quite a nice distinction, Leo.
Just occasionally, you know.
Oh, quite so. Sometimes a poet, sometimes a bishop, sometimes a fairy prince, sometimes somebody quite indescribable, and sometimes nobody at all.
Yes, that's just it. How did you know?
I should say most imaginative and cultivated young women feel like that. Oh, I wouldn't give a rap for one who didn't. Shakespeare pointed out long ago that a woman wanted a Sunday husband as well as a weekday one. But as usual, he didn't follow up the idea.
Am I to understand?
Now, Boxer, am I the bishop or are you?
You?
Well, then don't ask me, are you to understand? Yours not to reason why, yours but to do and die.
That's all right, very well. Go on. I'm not clever, only a city soldier man. Go on, go on.
Alfred, don't tease Boxer.
If we're going to discuss ethical questions, we must begin by giving the devil fair play. Boxer never does. England never does. We always assume that the devil is guilty, and we won't allow him to prove his innocence because it would be against public morals if he succeeded. We used to do the same with prisoners accused of high treason. And the consequence is that we overreach ourselves, and the devil gets the better of us after all. Perhaps that's what most of us intended him to do.
Alfred, we asked you here to preach to Leo. You're preaching at me instead. I am not conscious of having said or done anything that calls for that unsolicited attention.
Oh, but poor little Leo has only told the simple truth, whilst you, Boxer, are striking moral attitudes.
I suppose that's an epigram. I don't understand epigram. I'm only a silly soldier, huh? But I can put a plain question. Is Leo to be encouraged to be a polygamist?
Oh, remember the British Empire, Boxer. You're a British general, you know.
What has that to do with polygamy?
Well, a great majority of our fellow subjects are polygamists. I can't, as a British bishop, insult them by speaking disrespectfully of polygamy. It's a very interesting question. Many very interesting men have been polygamists. Solomon, Muhammad, and our friend the Duke I can never remember his name.
It would become you better, Alfred, to send that silly girl back to her husband and her duty than to talk clever and mock at your religion. What God hath joined together, let no man pull asunder. Remember that.
Don't be afraid, Boxer. What God hath joined together, no man ever shall pull asunder. God will take care of that. Oh, by the way, who was it that joined you and Reginald, my dear?
That awful little curate that afterwards drank and travelled first class with a third-class ticket, and then tried to go on the stage. But they wouldn't have him. He called himself Egerton Fotheringay.
Well, whom Egerton Fotheringay has joined, let Sir Gorrel Barnes put asunder by all means.
I may be a silly soldier man, but I call this blasphemy.
Better for me to take the name of Mr. Egerton Fotheringay in earnest than for you to take a higher name in vain.
Can't you three brothers ever meet without quarrelling?
Oh, this isn't quarrelling, Lesbia. It's only English family life. Good morning.
You know, Bishop, it's very dear of you to take my part, but I'm not sure that I'm not a little shocked.
Then I think I've been a little more successful than Boxer in getting you into a proper frame of mind.
Ah!
Not a bit. For now, I'm going to shock you worse than ever. I think Solomon was an old beast.
Precisely what you ought to think of him, my dear. Don't apologize.
Well, but hang it. Solomon was in the Bible. And after all, Solomon was Solomon.
And I stick to it. I still want to have a lot of interesting men. Oh, sorry.
And I stick to it. I still want to have a lot of interesting men to know quite intimately, to say everything I think of to them, and have them say everything they think of to me.
So you shall, my dear, if you're lucky. But you know, you needn't marry them all. Think of all the buttons you'd have to sew on. Besides, nothing is more dreadful than a husband who keeps telling you everything he thinks and always wants to know what you think.
Well, that's very true of Reggie. In fact, that's why I had to divorce him.
Yes, he repeats himself dreadfully, doesn't he?
Look here, Alfred. If I have my faults, let her find them out for herself without your help.
But she's found them out already, Reginald.
After all, there are worse men than Reginald. I dare say he's not so clever as you, but still he's not such a fool as you seem to think him.
Quite right, dear. Stand up for your husband. I hope you will always stand up for all your husbands.
Please don't talk as if I wanted to marry a whole regiment. For me, there can never be more than two. I shall never love anybody but Reggie and St. John.
A man with a face like a...
I won't have it, Reggie. It's disgusting.
You see, my dear, you'll exhaust St. John's conversation in a week or so. A man is like a phonograph with half a dozen records. You soon get tired of them all, and yet you have to sit at table while he reels them off to every new visitor. But in the end, you have to be content with his common humanity. And when you come down to that, you find out about men what a great English poet of my acquaintance used to say about women, that they all taste alike. Marry whom you please. At the end of a month, he'll be Reginald all over again. Wasn't worth changing. Indeed it wasn't.
Then it's a mistake to get married.
Oh, it is, my dear. But it's a much bigger mistake not to get married.
Ah! You hear that, Lesbia?
That's only an epigram, Boxer.
Sound sense, Lesbia. When a man talks rot, that's epigram. When he talks sense, then I agree with him.
It's getting late. Where's Edith? Hasn't she got into a veil in orange blossoms yet?
You go and hurry her, Lesbia.
Come with me, Leo.
Yes, certainly.
Alice, I've had another letter from the mysterious lady who can't spell. You know, I like that woman's letters. There's an intensity of passion in them that fascinates me.
Do you mean incognita appassionata?
Yes.
You mean to say that women write love letters to you?
Of course.
They never do to me.
Well, the army doesn't attract women. The church does.
Do you consider it right to let them? They may be married women, you know.
Well, they always are. Well, this one is. Don't you think her letters are quite the best love letters I get? Oh, poor Alice has to read my love letters aloud to me at breakfast when they're worth it.
There really is something fascinating about incognita. She never gives her address. That's a good sign.
MF? No assignations, you mean?
Oh, yes. She began the correspondence by making a very curious but very natural assignation. She wants me to meet her in heaven. I hope I shall.
Well, I must say I hope not, Alfred. I hope not.
She says she's happily married and that love is a necessary of life to her, but that she must have high above all her lovers.
She has several, apparently.
Some great man who will never know her, never touch her, as she is on earth, but whom she can meet in heaven when she has risen above all the everyday vulgarities of earthly love.
Excellent. Very good for her and no trouble to me. Everybody ought to have one of these idealizations, like Dante's Beatrice.
Alice, will you come upstairs? Edith is not dressed.
Not dressed? Does she know what time it is?
She has locked herself into her room reading.
Reading?
What's she reading?
Some pamphlet that came by the 11 o'clock post. She won't come out. She won't open the door. And she says she doesn't know whether she's going to be married or not till she's finished the pamphlet. Did you ever hear such a thing? Do come and speak to her.
Alfred, you'd better go.
Oh, try Collins.
We've tried Collins already. He got all that I've told you out of her through the keyhole. Come, Alice.
Oh, this means a delay. I shall go back to my work.
What are you working out now?
A chapter in my history of marriage. I'm just at the Roman business, you know.
Not more ritualism, I hope, Alfred.
No. I mean ancient Rome. I've just come to the period when the propertied classes refused to get married and went in for marriage settlements instead. If you were the oldest family stuck to the marriage traditions as to keep up the supply of Vestal virgins who had to be legitimate, but nobody else dreamt of getting married. It's all very interesting because we're coming to that here in England, except that we don't require any Vestal virgins, and so nobody will get married at all, except the poor, perhaps.
You take it devilishly coolly, Reginald. Do you think the Barmecide's quite sane?
No worse than ever he was.
And do you mean to say you ever believe that such a thing will happen in England, as that respectable people will give up being married?
Oh, in England especially they will. In other countries, the introduction of reasonable divorce laws will save the situation. But in England, we always let an institution strain itself until it breaks. I've told our last 4 prime ministers that if they didn't make our marriage laws reasonable, there would be a strike against marriage, and that it would begin among the propertied classes where no government would dare to interfere with it.
What did they say to that?
Oh, the usual thing. Quite agreed with me, but was sure they were the only sensible men in the world, and that the least hint of marriage reform would lose them the next election. And then lost it all just the same, on cordite, on drink, on Chinese labour in South Africa, on all sorts of trumpery.
It's no use. They won't listen to our sort. Of course, they have to make you a bishop and Boxer a general, because, after all, the blessed rabble of snobs and cads and half-starved shopkeepers can't do government work, and the bounders and weekenders are too lazy and vulgar. They simply rot without us. But what do they ever do for us? What attention do they ever pay to what we say and what we want? I take that we Bridgenorth's a pretty typical English family of the sort that has always set things straight and stuck up for the right to think and believe according to our conscience. But nowadays, we are expected to dress and eat as the weekend bounders do, and to think and believe as the converted cannibals of Central Africa do, and to lie down and let every snob and every cad and every halfpenny journalist walk over us. Why, there's not a newspaper in England today that represents what I call solid Bridgenorth opinion and tradition. Half of them read as if they were published at the nearest mothers' meeting, and the other half at the nearest motor garage. Do you call these chaps gentlemen? Do you call them Englishmen? I don't.
Do you see my uniform? You see my uniform. Now, what did Colin say? It strikes the eye. It was meant to. I put it on expressly to give the modern army bounder a smack in the eye. Somebody has to set the right example by beginning. Well, let it be a Bridgenorth. I believe in family blood and tradition, by George.
I wonder who will begin the stand against marriage. It must come someday. I was married myself before I'd thought about it, and even if I had thought about it, I was too much in love with Alice to let anything stand in the way. But you know, I've seen one of our daughters after another, Ethel, Jane, Fanny, and Christina and Florence, go out at that door in their veils and orange blossoms. And I've always wondered whether they'd have gone quietly if they'd known what they were doing. I have a horrible misgiving about that pamphlet. All progress means war with society. Heaven forbid that Edith should be one of the combatants.
Mr. Hotchkiss.
Oh, toodaloo, Reggie.
Morning.
Good morning, Bishop.
What on earth are you doing here, St. John? You belong to the bridegroom's party. You've no business here until after the ceremony.
Yes, I know. That's just it. May I have a word with you in private? Reggie or any of the family won't matter, but...
All right, St. John. This is our brother, General Bridgenorth.
Oh, good. As you're in the service, you'll allow me to introduce myself. Read my card, please.
Mr. St. John Hotchkiss, the celebrated coward, late lieutenant in the 165th Fusiliers.
He was sent back from South Africa because he funked an order to attack and spoiled his commanding officer's plan.
Yes, I remember the case now. I'd forgotten the name. I'll not refuse your acquaintance, Mr. Hotchkiss, partly because you're my brother's guest and partly because I've seen too much active service not to know that every man's nerve plays him false at one time or another, and that some very honorable men should never go into action at all because they are not built that way. But if I were you, I should not use that visiting card. No doubt it's an honorable trait in your character that you don't wish any man to give you his hand in ignorance of your disgrace. But you had better allow us to forget. We wish to forget. It isn't your disgrace alone, it's a disgrace to the army and to all of us. Pardon my plain speaking.
My dear General, I don't know what fear means in military sense of the word. I've fought 7 duels, the sabre in Italy and Austria, and one with pistols in France without turning a hair. There was no other way in which I would vindicate my motives in refusing to make the attack in Smutfontein. I don't pretend to be a brave man. I'm afraid of wasps, I'm afraid of cats. In spite of the voice of reason, I'm afraid of ghosts. And twice I've fled across Europe, false alarms of cholera. But afraid to fight, I am not. Eh, Reggie?
Well, then why did you not do your duty at Smutsfontein?
I did my duty, my higher duty. If I had made that attack, my commanding officer's plan would have been successful and he would have been promoted. Now, I happen to think that the British Army should be commanded by gentlemen, and by gentlemen alone. This man was not a gentleman. I sacrificed my military career. I faced disgrace and social ostracism rather than give that man his chance.
Your commanding officer, sir, was my friend, Major Billiter.
Oh, precisely. What a name.
And pray, sir, on what ground do you dare allege that Major Billiter is not a gentleman?
By an infallible sign, one of those trifles that stamp a man. He eats rice pudding with a spoon.
Confound you! I eat rice pudding with a spoon, now!
Oh, so do I, frequently, but there are ways of doing these things. Billeter's was unmistakable.
Well, I'll tell you something now. When I thought you were only a coward, I pitied you, and I would have done what I could to help you back to your place in society.
Thank you. I haven't lost it. My motives have been fully appreciated. I was made an honorary member of 2 of the smartest clubs in London when the truth came out.
Well, sir, those clubs consist of snobs, and you are a jumping, bounding, prancing, snorting snob yourself.
My dear Boxer.
How kind of you to say so, General. You're quite right. I am a snob. Why not? The whole strength of England lies in the fact that the enormous majority of English people are snobs. They insult poverty, they despise vulgarity, they love nobility, they admire exclusiveness. They will not obey a man who rises from the ranks. They never trust one of their own class. I agree with them. I share their instincts. In my undergraduate days, I was a Republican, a socialist. I tried hard to feel toward a common man as I do towards a duke. I couldn't. Neither can you. Well, why should we be ashamed of this aspiration towards what is above us? Why don't I say that an honest gentleman's the noblest work of God? Because I don't think so. If he's not a gentleman, I don't care whether he's honest or no. I shouldn't let his son marry my daughter. And that's the test, mind. That's the test. You feel as I do. You are a snob, in fact. I am a snob, not only in fact, but on principle. I shall go down in history not as the first snob, but as the first avowed champion of English snobbery and its first martyr in the army. The Navy boasts 2 such martyrs in Captains Kirby and Wade, who were shot for refusing to fight under Admiral Benbow, a promoted cabin boy. I have always envied them their glory.
As a British general, sir, I have to inform you that if any officer under my command violated the sacred equality of our profession by putting a single jot of his duty or his risk on the shoulders of the humblest drummer boy, I'd shoot him with my own hand.
That sentiment is not your equality, General, but your superiority. You ask the bishop.
I can't support you, St. John. My profession also compels me to turn my back on snobbery. You see, I have to do such a terribly democratic thing to every child that is brought to me. Without distinction of class, I have to confer on it a rank so high and awful that all the grades in Debrett and Burke seem like the medals they give children in infant schools in comparison. I'm not allowed to make any class distinction. They're all soldiers and servants, not officers and masters.
You're quoting the baptism service. Now, that's not a bit real, you know. If I may say so, you would both feel much more at peace with yourselves if you would acknowledge and confess your real convictions. You know you don't really think a bishop an equal to a curate, or a lieutenant in a line regiment the equal to a general.
Of course I do. I was a curate myself.
I was a lieutenant in a line regiment.
And I was nothing. We're all our own and one another's equals, aren't we? So perhaps when you've quite done talking about yourselves, we shall get to whatever business St. John came about.
Oh, my dear fellow, I beg 1,000 pardons. Oh, true, it's about the wedding.
What about the wedding?
Well, we can't get our man up to scratch. Cecil has locked himself in his room and won't see or speak to anyone. I went up to his room and I banged at the door. I told him I should look through the keyhole if he didn't answer. I looked through the keyhole. He was sitting on his bed reading a book. I told him not to be an ass and so forth. He said he was not going to budge until he had finished the book. I asked him did he know what time it was and whether he happened to recollect that he had a rather important appointment to marry Edith. He said the sooner I stopped interrupting him, the sooner he'd be ready. Then he stuffed his fingers in his ears, turned over on his elbows, and buried himself in his beastly book. I couldn't get another word out of him, so I thought I'd better come here and warn you.
This looks like to me they've arranged it between them.
No, Edith has no sense of humour. And I've never seen a man in a jocular mood on his wedding morning.
Mr. Cecil Sykes.
Look here, Cecil, this is all wrong. You've no business here until after the wedding. Hang it, man, you're the bridegroom.
I'm here to say this. When I proposed to Edith, I was in utter ignorance of what I was letting myself in for legally. Having given my word, I will stand to it. You have me at your mercy. Marry me if you insist, but take notice that I protest.
What the devil do you mean by this?
Found your impertinence.
Easy, Reggie. Steady.
No, Reg, control yourself. Boxer, I beg you.
I tell you, I can't control myself. I've been controlling myself for the last half an hour until I feel like bloody bursting.
That's just it, Bishop. Edith is her uncle's niece. She can't control herself any more than they can. And she's a bishop's daughter. That means she's engaged in social work of all sorts and organising shop assistants and sweated work girls and all that. When her blood boils about it, and it boils at least once a week, she doesn't care what she says.
Well, you knew that when you proposed to her.
Yes, but I didn't know that when we were married, I should be legally responsible if she libeled anybody. Though all her property is protected against me as I were the lowest thief and cadger. This morning, somebody sent me Belfort Bax's essays on men's wrongs, and they have been a perfect eye-opener to me. Bishop, I'm not thinking of myself. I would face anything for Edith, but my mother and sisters are wholly dependent on my property. I'd rather have cut off an inch of my right arm than 100 a year from my mother's income. I owe everything to her care of me. Edith in dressing jacket and petticoat comes through the tower swiftly and determinately, pamphlet in hand and principal up in arms, more of a bishop than her father. Yes, as much a gentlewoman as a mother.
You're reading stage directions.
Oh,
sorry. You're reading stage directions.
Oh, sorry.
Edith Edward.
Cecil, I heard your voice. I must speak to you very particularly. Papa, go away, everybody.
Well, I think there can be no doubt that Edith wishes us to retire. Come.
That's it, you see. It's just this outspokenness that makes my position hard, much as I admire her for it.
Do you want me to flatter and be untruthful?
No, not exactly that.
Does anybody want me to flatter and be untruthful?
Well, since you ask me, I do. Surely it's the very first qualification for tolerable social intercourse.
I hope you will always tell me the truth, my darling, at all events.
You can depend on me for that, Uncle Boxer.
Are you sure you have the adequate idea of what the truth about a military man really is?
What's the truth about you, I wonder?
Oh, quite unfit for publication in its entirety. If Miss Bridgenorth begins telling it, I shall have to leave the room.
I'm not at all surprised to hear it. But what's it got to do with all our business here today? Is it you that's going to be married, or is it Edith?
I'm so sorry. I get so interested in myself that I thrust myself in front of every discussion in the most insufferable way. But my dear Reggie, are you quite sure that Miss Bridgenorth is going to be married? Are you, Miss Bridgenorth?
Yes, here she is, of course. I told her. I heard her dash down. I told you I heard her dash downstairs.
And Cecil?
And St. John.
Edith wishes to speak to Cecil. Let us go into my study.
Oh, but she must come and dress. Look at the hour.
Come, Leo, dear.
Do you know, Miss Bridgenorth, I should most awfully like to hear what you have to say to poor Cecil.
Well...
Who is poor Cecil, pray?
One always calls a man that on his wedding morning. I don't know why. I'm his best man, you know. Don't you think it gives me a certain right to be present in Cecil's interest?
There is such a thing as delicacy, Mr. Hotchkiss.
There is such a thing as curiosity, General.
Delicacy is thrown away here, Alfred. Edith, you had better take Mr. Sykes into the study.
Of course, I'll go if you wish me to, but Cecil's objection to go through with it is entirely on public ground.
St. John, you have no right to say that. I expressly say that I'm ready to go through with it.
Cecil, do you mean to say that you've been raising difficulties about our marriage?
I raise no difficulty, but I do beg you be careful what you say about people. You must remember, my dear, that when we are married, I shall be responsible for everything you say. Only last week, you said on a public platform that Sladdox and Chinnery were scoundrels. Think You'd have got £1,000 damages apiece for me for that if we'd been married at the time.
I never said anything of the sort. I never stooped to vituperation. What would my girls say of me if I did? I chose my words very carefully. I said they were tyrants, liars, and thieves. And so they are. Slatix is even worse.
I'm afraid that would be at least £5,000.
If it were only myself, I shouldn't care, but my mother and sisters, I've no right to sacrifice them.
You needn't be alarmed. I'm not going to be married.
Not?
Edith, are you throwing me over?
How can I, if you've been beforehand with me?
On my honour, no. All I said is I didn't know the law when I asked you to be my wife.
And you wouldn't have asked me if you had, is that it?
No, I should have asked you for my sake to be more careful, not to ruin me uselessly.
You think the truth useless?
Oh, much worse than useless, I assure you. Frequently most mischievous.
St. Hold your tongue. You are a chatterbox and a fool.
My love.
I shall not take action, Cecil.
Sorry, but you are old enough to know better. And now, as there is to be no wedding, we'd better get back to our work. Mamma, will you tell Collins to cut up the wedding cake into 33 pieces for the club girls? My not being married is no reason why they should be disappointed.
If you'll allow me to take Cecil's place, Miss Bridgenorth.
St.
Oh, I forgot. I beg your pardon. Prior engagement.
What? You and Leo? I thought so. Well, hadn't you two better get married at once? Now, I don't approve of long engagements. The breakfast's ready, the cake's ready, everything's ready, and I'll just unlayer my veil and things.
I'm afraid they must wait until the decree is made absolute, my dear. And the license is not transferable.
Oh, well, it can't be helped. Is there anything else before I go off to the club?
You don't seem much disappointed, Edith. I can't help saying that much.
Well, and you can't help looking enormously relieved, Cecil. We shan't be any worse friends, shall we?
Of course not. Still, I'm perfectly ready. At least, if it were not for my mother, I don't know what to do. I've been so fond of you, and when the whirring of the wedding was over, I should have been fond of you again.
Oh, come, don't make a scene, dear. You're quite right. I don't think a woman doing public work ought to get married unless her husband feels about it as she does. I don't blame you at all for throwing me over.
No, dash it. I'm not going to stand this. Why is this man always to be put in the wrong? Be honest, Edith. Why weren't you dressed? Were you going to throw him over? If you were, take your fair share of the blame and don't put it all on him.
Would it not be better?
Now, look here, Hotchkiss. Who asked you to cut in? Is your name Edith? Am I your uncle?
I wish you were. I should like to have an uncle, Reginald.
Yeah, Sykes. Are you ready to marry Edith, or are you not?
Already said that I'm quite ready. A promise is a promise.
We don't want to know whether a promise is a promise or not. Can't you answer yes or no without spoiling it and setting Hotchkiss here grinning like a Cheshire cat? If she puts on her veil and goes to the church, will you marry her?
Certainly, yes.
Ah, that's all right. Now, Edie, put on your veil and off with you to the church. The bridegroom's waiting.
Is it understood that Slatix and Chinnery are liars and thieves? And that I hope by next Wednesday to have in my hands conclusive evidence that Slatix is something much worse?
I made no conditions as to you when I proposed to you. Now I can't go back. I hope Providence will spare my poor mother. I say again that I'm ready to marry you.
Then I think you show great weakness of character. And instead of taking advantage of it, I shall set you a better example. I want to know, is this true?
Do you know what you are going to do by a woman who has done it? May I ask, my dear, what she did?
She got married. When she had 3 children, the eldest only 4 years old, her husband committed a murder and then attempted to commit suicide, but only succeeded in disfiguring himself. And instead of hanging him, they sent him to penal servitude for life for the sake, they said, of his wife and infant children. And she could not get a divorce from that horrible murderer. They would not even keep him in prison for life. For 20 years, she had to live singly, bringing up her children by her own work. and knowing that just when they were grown up and beginning life, this dreadful creature would be let out to disgrace them all, and prevent the two girls getting decently married, and drive the son out of the country, perhaps. And is that really the law? Am I to understand that if Cecil commits a murder, or forges, or steals, or becomes an atheist, I can't get divorced from him?
Yes, my dear, that is so. You must take him for better or worse.
Then I most certainly refuse to enter into any such wicked contract. What sort of servants, what sort of friends, what sort of prime minister should we have if we took them for better or worse all their lives? We should simply encourage them in every sort of wickedness. Surely my husband's conduct is of more importance to me than Mr. Balfour's or Mr. Asquith's. If I had known the law, I never would have consented. I don't believe any woman would if she realized what she was doing.
But I'm not going to commit murder.
How do you know? I've sometimes wanted to murder Slatix. Have you never wanted to murder somebody, Uncle Reggie?
Yes.
Reggie!
I said yes, and I mean yes. There was one night, Hotchkiss, when I jolly near shot you and Leo and finished up with myself, and that's the truth.
Oh, Reggie.
Be off.
But isn't this all great nonsense? What likelihood is there of any of us committing a crime?
Oh, yes, I assure you. I went into the matter once very carefully, and I found things I have actually done, things that everybody does, I imagine, would expose me if I were found out and prosecuted to 10 years penal servitude, 2 years hard labor, and a loss of all civil rights. Not counting that I'm a private trustee, and like all private trustees, a fraudulent one. Otherwise, the widow for whom I am a trustee would starve occasionally, and the children get no education. And I am probably as honest a man as any here.
Do you imply that I have been guilty of conduct that would expose me to penal servitude?
I should think it quite likely, but of course, I don't know.
But bless me, marriage is not a question of law, is it? Have you children no affection for one another? Surely that's enough?
If it's enough, why get married?
Stuff, St. John. Of course, people must get married. Alfred, why don't you say something? Surely you're not going to let this go on?
I've been waiting for the last 20 minutes, Alfred, in amazement, in stupefaction, to hear you put a stop to all this. We look to you. It's your place, your office, your duty. Exert your authority at once.
Well, you must give the devil fair play, Boxer. Until you've heard and weighed his case, you've no right to condemn him. I'm sorry you've been kept waiting 20 minutes, but I myself have waited 20 years for this to happen. I've often wrestled with the temptation to pray that it might not happen in my own household. Perhaps it was a presentiment that it might become a part of our old Bridgenorth burden that maybe warn our government so earnestly that unless the law of marriage were first made human, it could never become divine.
Oh, do be sensible about this. People must get married. What would you have said if Cecil's parents had not been married?
Well, they were not, my dear.
Hey,
What do you mean?
What on earth do you mean, Bishop? My parents were married.
You can't remember, Cecil.
Well, I never asked my mother to show me the marriage lines, if that's what you mean. Man never has. I never suspected. I never knew. Are you joking? Have we all gone mad?
Don't be alarmed, Cecil. Let me explain. Your parents were not Anglicans. You were not, I think, Anglican yourself until your second year at Oxford. They were positivists. They went through the positivist ceremony at Newton Hall in Fetter Lane after entering into the civil contract before the registrar of the West Strand district. Now, I ask you, as an Anglican Catholic, was that a marriage?
Great heavens, no. 1,000 times no. I never thought of that. I'm a child of sin.
Oh, come. You're no more a child of sin than any Jew or Mohammedan or nonconformist or anyone else born outside the church. But you see how it affects my view of the situation. To me, there is only one marriage that is holy, the church's sacrament of marriage. Outside that, I can recognize no distinction between one civil contract and another. There was a time when all marriages were made in heaven, but because the church was unwise and would not make its ordinances reasonable, its power over men and women was taken away from it, and marriages gave place to contracts at a registry office. And now that our governments refuse to make these contracts reasonable, those whom we in our blindness drove out of the church will be driven out of the registry office. And we shall have the history of ancient Rome repeated. We shall be joined by our solicitors for 7, 14, or 21 years, or perhaps months. Deeds of partnership will replace the old vows.
Would you, as a bishop, approve such a partnership?
Do you think that I, a bishop, approve of the Deceased Wife's Sister Act? That did not prevent it from becoming law.
But when the government sounded you as to whether you'd marry a man to his deceased wife's sister, you very naturally and properly told them you'd see them damned first.
Oh, no, really, Boxer, you must not.
No, of course I don't mean that you used those words, but that was the meaning and the spirit of it.
Oh, not the spirit, Boxer. Well, but never mind that. The point is that state marriage is already divorced from church marriage. The relations between Leo and Reggie and St. John are perfectly legal, but do you expect me, as a bishop, to approve of them?
I don't defend Reginald. He should have kicked you out of the house, Mr. Hotchkiss.
How could I kick him out of the house? He's stronger than me. He could have kicked me out if it came to that. Oh, he did kick me out. What else was it but kicking me out or take my wife's affections from me and establish himself in my place?
I protest, Reginald. I said all a man could do to prevent the smash.
Oh, I know you did. I don't blame you. People don't do these things to one another. They happen, and they can't be helped. What was I to do? I was old. She was young. I was dull. He was brilliant. I had a face like a walnut. He had a face like a mushroom. I was glad to have him in the house as she was. He amused me, and we were a couple of fools. He gave us good advice, told us what to do when we didn't know. She found out that I wasn't any use to her, and he was. So she nabbed him and gave me the chuck.
If you don't stop talking in that disgraceful way about our married life, I'll leave the room and never speak to you again.
You're not going to speak to me again anyway, are you? Do you suppose I'm going to visit you when you marry him?
I hope so. Surely you're not going to be vindictive, Reggie. Besides, you'll have all the advantages I formerly enjoyed. You'll be the visitor, the relief, the new face, the fresh news, the hopeless attachment. I shall only be the husband.
Will you tell me this, any of you? How is it that we always get talking about Hotchkiss when our business is about Edith?
Will somebody tell me how the world is to go on if nobody is to get married?
Will somebody tell me what an honorable man and a sincere Anglican is to propose to a woman whom he loves and who loves him and won't marry him?
Will somebody tell me how I'm to arrange to take care of Reggie when I'm married to St. John? Reggie must not be allowed to marry anyone else, especially that odious, nasty creature that told all those wicked lies about him in court.
Let us draw up the first English partnership deed.
For shame, St. John.
Well, somebody must begin, my dear. I have a very strong suspicion that when it is drawn up, it will be so much worse than the existing law that you will all prefer getting married. We shall therefore be doing the greatest possible service to morality by just trying how the new system would work.
I've been thinking.
Oh, nothing like making people think, is there, St. John?
A woman has no right to refuse motherhood. That is clear after the statistics given in the Times by Mr. Sidney Webb.
Mr. Webb has nothing to do with it. It is the voice of nature.
But if she is an English lady, it is her right and her duty to stand out for honourable conditions. If we can agree on the conditions, I am willing to enter into an alliance with Boxer.
And I with Cecil.
And I with Reggie and St. John.
An alliance? Do you mean
He only means bigamy, as I understand her.
Alfred, how much longer are you going to stand there and countenance this lunacy? Is it a horrible dream or am I awake? In the name of common sense and sanity, let us go back to real life.
Sorry to hurry you, my lord, but the church has been full of this hour past, and the organist has played all the wedding music at Lohengrin 3 times over.
The very man we want, Alfred. I am not equal to this crisis. You are not equal to it. The army has failed. The church has failed. I shall put aside all idle social distinctions and appeal to the municipality.
Do, Boxer. He is sure to get us out of this difficulty.
I have not had the pleasure. Will you introduce me?
All right, sir. Only the greengrocer, sir, in charge of the wedding breakfast. Mr. Alderman Collins, sir, when I'm in my gown.
Very pleased indeed.
Personally, I value the counsel of my old friend, Mr. Alderman Collins, very highly. If Edith and Cecil will allow
Collins has
him...
known me from my childhood. I'm sure he will agree with me.
Oh, yes, Miss, you may depend upon me for that. Might I ask what the difficulty is?
Simply this. Do you expect me to get married in the existing state of the law?
I put it to you as a sensible man. Is it any worse for her than for me?
That's not the point. Let this be understood, Mr. Collins. It's not the man who is backing out. It's the woman.
We do not admit that, Collins. The women are perfectly ready to make a reasonable arrangement.
With both men.
The case is now before you, Mr. Collins, and I put it to you that as one man to another. Did you ever hear such crazy nonsense?
The world must go on, mustn't it, Collins?
Oh, the world will go on, ma'am. Don't you be afraid of that. It ain't as easy to stop it as the earnest kind of people think.
I knew you would agree with me, Collins. Thank you.
Have you the least idea what they are talking about, Mr. Alderman?
Oh, that's all right, sir. The particulars don't matter. I never read the report of a committee. After all, what can they say that you don't know? You pick it up as they go on talking. Well, my lord, and Miss Edith, and madam and gentlemen, it's like this. Marriage is tolerable enough in its way if you're easygoing and don't expect too much from it. But it doesn't bear talking about. The great thing is to get the young people tied up before they know what they're letting themselves in for. There's Miss Lesbia now. She waited till she started thinking about it, and then it was all over. If you once start arguing, Miss Edith and Mr. Sykes, you'll never get married. Go and get married first. You'll have plenty of arguing afterward, miss, believe me.
Your warning comes too late. They've started arguing already.
But you do take in the full, well, I didn't mean to exaggerate, but the only word I can find is the full horror of the situation. These ladies not only refuse our honorable offers, but as I understand it, and I'm sure I beg your pardon most heartily, Lesbia, if I'm wrong, as I hope I am, they actually call upon us to enter into, I'm sorry to use the expression, but what else can I say, into alliances with them, under contracts to be drawn up by our confounded solicitors.
Dear me, General, that's something new when the parties belong to the same class.
No, not new, Collins. The Romans did it.
Yes, they would, them Romans. When you're in Rome, do as the Romans do, is an old saying. But we're not in Rome at present, my lord.
We have got into many of their ways. What do you think of the contract system, Collins?
Well, my lord, when there's a question of a contract, I always say, show it to me on paper. If it's to be talk, let it be talk. But if it's to be a contract, down with it in black and white, and then we shall know what we're about.
Quite right, Mr. Alderman. Let us draft it at once. May I go into the study for writing materials, Bishop?
Oh, do, St. John.
If I might point out a difficulty, my lord.
Certainly. Won't you sit down, Mr. Alderman?
We are at present 6 men to 4 ladies. That's not fair.
Not fair to the men, you mean?
Oh, Reggie has said something clever. Can I be mistaken?
I tell you the truth, my lords and ladies and gentlemen. I don't trust my judgment on this subject. There's a certain lady that I always consult on delicate points like this. She has a very exceptional experience and a wonderful temperament and instinct in affairs of the heart.
Excuse me, Mr. Alderman. I am a snob, and I warn you that there's no use consulting anyone who will not advise us frankly on class lines. Marriage is good enough for the lower classes. They have facilities for desertion that are denied to us. What is the social position of this lady?
The highest in the borough, sir. She is the mayoress. You need not stand in awe of her, sir. She is my sister-in-law. Mrs. George, ma'am.
You mean to say, Collins, that Mrs. George is a real person?
Didn't you believe in her, ma'am?
Never for a moment.
We always thought that Mrs. George was too good to be true. I still don't believe in her, Collins. You must produce her if you are to convince me.
Well, I'm so taken aback by this that I never... Why, she's at the church this moment, waiting to see the wedding.
Well, then produce her. Oh, come, Collins, confess there's no such person.
There is, my lord, there is, I assure you. You ask George. It's true, I can't produce her, but you can, my lord.
I?
Yes, my lord, you. For some reason that I never could make out, she has forbidden me to talk about you or to let her meet you. I've asked her to come here of a wedding in the morning to help with the flowers and the like, and she has always refused. But if you order her to come as her bishop, she'll come. She has some very strange fancies, says Mrs. George. Send your ring to her, my lord, the official ring. Send it by some very stylish gentleman. Perhaps Mr. Hotchkiss here would be good enough to take it, and she'll come.
Oblige me by undertaking the mission.
But how am I to know the lady?
She's gone to church in state, sir, and will be attended by a beadle with an ace. He will point her out to you, and he will take the front seat of the carriage on the way back.
No, by heavens. Forgive me, Bishop, but you are asking too much. I ran away from the Boers because I was a snob. I run away from the beadle for the same reason. I absolutely decline at the mission.
Be good enough to give me that ring, Mr. Hotchkiss.
With pleasure.
I shall have the great pleasure, Mr. Alderman, in waiting on the mayoress with the bishop's orders, and I shall be proud to return with municipal honours.
Boxer is a rather fine old josser in his way.
His uniform gives him an unfair advantage. He will take all the attention off the beadle.
I think it would be as well, my lord, to go on with the contract while we're waiting. The truth is, we shall none of us have much of a look in when Mrs. George comes. So we had better finish the writing part of the business before she arrives.
I think I have the preliminaries down all right. Memorandum of agreement made this day of blank blank between blank blank of blank blank in the county of blank, Esquire, hereinafter called the gentleman of the one part, and blank blank of blank in the county of blank, hereinafter called the lady of the other part, whereby it is declared and agreed as follows.
You might remember your manners, St. John. The lady comes first.
Oh, to be sure, beg your pardon.
And you have only got one lady and one gentleman. There ought to be two gentlemen.
That's a mere matter of form, ma'am. Any number of ladies or gentlemen can be put here.
Not any number of ladies. Only one lady. Besides, that creature wasn't a lady.
You shut your head, Leo. This is a general sort of contract for everybody. It's not your tract.
Then what use is it to me?
You will get some hints of it for your own contract.
I hope there will be no hinting. Let us have this plain and straightforward truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, yes, miss, it will be all right. There's nothing to underhand, I assure you. It's a model agreement, as it were.
I hope so.
What is the first clause in agreement usually? Do you know, Mr. Alderman?
Well, sir, the town clerk always sees to that. I've got out of the habit of thinking for myself in these matters. Perhaps his lordship knows.
Oh, I'm sorry to say that I don't. But Soames will know. Alice, where's Soames?
He's in there.
Oh, coax him to join us, my love. Soames is my chaplain, Mr. Collins. The great difficulty about bishops in the Church of England today is that the affairs of the diocese make it necessary that the bishop should be, before everything, a man of business, capable of sticking to his desk for 16 hours a day. But the result of having bishops of this sort is that the spiritual interests of the church and its influence on the souls and imaginations of the people, very soon begins to go rapidly to the devil. Oh, I am speaking technically, and not in Boxer's manner. Indeed, the bishops themselves went so far in that direction that they gained a reputation for being spiritually the stupidest men in the country, and commercially the sharpest. I found a way out of this difficulty. Soames was my solicitor. I found that Soames, though a very capable man of business, had a romantic secret history. His father was an eminent nonconformist divine who habitually spoke of the Church of England as the Scarlet Woman. Soames became secretly converted to Anglicanism at the age of 15. He longed to take holy orders, but didn't dare to because his father had a weak heart and habitually threatened to drop dead if anybody hurt his feelings. You may have noticed that people with weak hearts are the tyrants of English family life. So poor Soames had to become a solicitor. When his father died, by a curious stroke of poetic justice, he died of scarlet fever and was found to have had a perfectly sound heart. I ordained Soames and made him my chaplain. Oh, he's not quite happy. He is celibate, fasts strictly on Fridays and throughout Lent, wears a cassock and biretta, and has more legal business to do than ever he had in his old office in Ely Place. He sets me free for the spiritual and scholarly pursuits proper to a bishop.
Here he is.
Oh, take my place, Mr. Soames.
No longer Mr. Soames syndrome, Father Anthony.
I was christened Oliver Cromwell Soames. My father had no right to do it. I've taken the name of Anthony. When you become parents, young gentlemen, be very careful not to label a helpless child with views which it may come to hold in abhorrence.
Has Alice explained to you the nature of the document we're drafting?
She has indeed.
That sounds as if you disapproved.
It is not for me to approve or disapprove. I do the work that comes to my hand from my ecclesiastical superior.
Oh, don't be uncharitable, Anthony. You must give us your best advice.
My advice to you all is to do your duty by taking the Christian vows of celibacy and poverty.
Oh.
The church is founded to put an end to marriage and to put an end to property.
But how could the world go on, Anthony?
Do your duty and see. Doing your duty is your business. Keeping the world going is in higher hands.
Anthony, you're impossible.
But you won't take my advice. I didn't expect you would. Well, I await your instructions.
We got stuck on the first clause. What shall we begin with?
Well, it is usual to begin with the term of the contract.
What does that mean?
Well, the term of years for which it is to hold good.
This is a marriage contract.
But is the marriage to be for a year, a week, or a day?
Come, I say, Anthony, you're worse than any of us. A day.
Off the path is off the path. An inch or a mile, what does it matter?
If the marriage is not to be forever, I'll have nothing to do with it. I call it immoral to have a marriage for a term of years. If the people don't like it, they can get divorced.
It ought to be for just as long as the two people like. That's what I say.
They may not agree on the point, sir. It's often fast with one and loose with the other.
I should say for as long as the man behaves himself.
Suppose the woman doesn't behave herself.
The woman may have lost all her chance of a good marriage with anybody else. She should not be cast adrift.
So may the man. What about his home?
The wife ought to keep an eye on him and see that he is comfortable and takes care of himself properly. The other man won't want her all the time.
There may not be another man.
Then why on earth should she leave him?
Because she wants to.
If people are going to be let do what they want to, then I call it simple immorality.
You do it yourself, don't you?
Oh, well, that's quite different. Don't make foolish witticisms, Reggie.
We don't seem to be getting on. What do you say, Mr. Alderman?
Well, my lord, you see, people do persist in talking as if marriages was all of one sort. But there's almost as many different sorts of marriages as there's different sorts of people. There's the young things that marry for love, not knowing what they're doing. The old things that marry for money and comfort and companionship. There's the people that marry for children. There's the people that don't intend to have children and that aren't fit to have them. There's the people that marry because there's so much run after by the other sex, they have to put a stop to it somehow. There's the people who want to try a new experience, the people who want to have done with experiences. How are you to please them all? Well, you'll need half a different different sorts of contracts.
Well, if so, let's draw them all up. Let's face it.
Why should we be held together whether we like it or not? That's the question that's at the bottom of it.
Because of the children, Reggie.
But even then, Mum, why should we be held together when that's all over? When the girls are married and the boys out in the world and in business for themselves, when that's done with, the real work of the marriage is done with. If the two like to stay together, let them stay together. But if not, let them part, as old people in the workhouses do. They've had enough of one another. They've found one another out. Why should they be tied together to sit there grudging and hating and spiting one another like so many do? Put it 20 years from the birth of the youngest child.
How if there be no children?
Let them take one another on liking.
Collins!
You wicked old man!
My dear, my dear.
And what is a woman to live on, pray, when she is no longer liked, as you call it?
Is it proposed that the term of the agreement be 20 years from the birth of the youngest child when they are children? Any amendment?
I protest. It must be for life. It would not be a marriage at all if it were not for life.
Mrs. Reginald Bridgenorth proposes life. Any seconder?
Don't be soulless, Anthony.
Now, I have a very important amendment. If there are any children, the man must be cleared completely out of the house for 2 years on each occasion. At such times he is superfluous, importunate, and ridiculous.
But where is he to go, miss?
But he can go where he likes as long as he does not bother the mother.
And is she to be left lonely?
Lonely? With a child? The poor woman would be only too glad to have a moment to herself. Don't be absurd, Reggie.
That father is to be a wandering, wretched outcast, living at his club and seeing nobody but his friends' wives.
Poor fellow.
The friends' wives are perhaps the solution of the problem. You see, their husbands will also be outcasts, and the poor ladies will occasionally pine for male society.
Well, there's no reason why a mother should not have male society. What she clearly should not have is a husband.
Anything else, Miss Graham?
Yes.
Phantom?
Yes. I must have my own separate house, or my own separate part of a house. Boxer smokes. I can't endure tobacco. Boxer believes that an open window means death from cold and exposure to the night air. I must have fresh air always. We can be friends, but we can't live together. And that must be put in the agreement.
I've no objection to smoking. And as to opening the windows, Cecil will of course have to do what's best for his health.
Who is to be the judge of that, my dear? You or he?
Neither of us. We must do what the doctor orders.
Doctor, be relieved.
Reggie!
You take my tip, Anthony. Put a clause into that agreement that the doctor is to have no say in the job. It's bad enough for two people to be married to one another without them both being married to the doctor as well.
Oh, that reminds me of something. Boxer believes in vaccination. I do not. There must be a clause that I'm to decide on such questions as I think best.
Baptism is nearly as important as vaccination, isn't it?
It used to be considered so, my dear.
Well, St. John scoffs at it. He says that godfathers are ridiculous. I must be allowed to decide.
They'll be his children as well as yours, you know.
Don't be indelicate, Reggie.
You're all forgetting the very important matter of money.
Ah, money. Now we're coming to it.
When I'm married, I shall have practically no money, except what I shall earn.
Sorry, Cecil. A bishop's daughter is a poor man's daughter.
But surely you don't imagine I'm going to let Edith work when we're married. I'm not a rich man, but I've enough to spare her that when I'm mother.
What nonsense! Of course I shall work when I'm married. I shall keep your house.
Oh, that.
You call that work?
Don't you? Leo used to do it for nothing, so no doubt you thought it wasn't work at all. Does your present housekeeper do it for nothing?
But it will be part of your duty as a wife.
Not under this contract. I'll not have it so. If I'm to keep the house, I shall expect Cecil to pay me, or at least as well as he would pay a hired housekeeper. I'll not go begging to him every time I want a new dress or cab fare, as so many women have to do.
You know very well I would grudge you nothing, Edie.
Then don't grudge me my self-respect and independence. I insist on it in fairness to you, Cecil, because in this way there will be a fund belonging solely to me. And if Slattex takes an action against you for anything I say, you can pay the damages and stop the interest out of my salary.
You forget that under this contract, he will not be liable because you will not be his wife in the law.
Nonsense, of course I shall be his wife.
Is Slattex taking an action against you, miss? Slattex is on the council with me. Could I settle it?
He has not taken an action, but Cecil says he will.
What for, miss, if I may ask?
Slattex is a liar and a thief, and it is my duty to expose him.
You surprise me, miss. Of course, Slattex is, in a manner of speaking, a liar. If I may say so without offence, we're all liars, who is only to spare one another's feelings. But I shouldn't call Slattex a thief. He's not all that he should be, perhaps, but he pays his way.
If that is only your nice way of saying that Slattex is entirely unfit to have 200 girls in his power as absolute slaves, then I shall say that too about him at the very next public meeting I address. He steals their wages under pretense of fining them. He steals their food under pretense of buying it for them. He lies when he denies having done it. And he does other things, as you evidently know, Collins. Therefore, I give you notice that I shall expose him before all England without the least regard to the consequence to myself.
To me?
I take equal risks. Suppose you felt it to be your duty to shoot Slattex, what will become of me and the children? I'm sure I don't want anybody to be shot, not even Slattex, but if the public never will take any notice of even the most crying evil until somebody is shot, what are people to do but shoot somebody?
I'm waiting for my instructions as to the term of the agreement.
It's no good talking all over the shop like this. We shall be here all day. I propose that this agreement holds good until the parties are divorced.
But they can't be divorced. They will not be married.
But if they can't be divorced, then this will be worse than marriage.
Of course it will. Do stop this nonsense. Why, who are the children to belong to?
We've already settled that. They are to belong to the mother.
No, I'm dashed if you have. I'll fight for my ownership of my own children tooth and nail. And so will a good many other fellows, I can tell you.
It seems to me they should be divided between the parents. If Cecil wishes any of the children to be his exclusively, we should pay a certain sum for the risk and trouble of bringing them into the world. Say £1,000 apiece. The interest on this could go towards the support of the child, as long as we live together. But the principal would be my property. In that way, if Cecil took the child away from me, I should at least be paid for what it has cost me.
Edith? Who has ever heard of such a thing?
Well, how else do you propose to settle it?
Well, there is such a thing as a favorite child. What about the youngest child, the Benjamin? Child of its parents, matured strength and charity, always better treated and better loved than the unfortunate eldest child. Eldest child of their youthful ignorance and willfulness. Which parent is to own the youngest child? Payment or no payment?
And there's a third party, my lord. There's the child itself. My wife is so fond of her children that they can't call their lives their own. They all run away from home to escape from her. A child hasn't a grown-up person's appetite for affection. A little of it goes a long way with them, and they like a good imitation of it better than the real thing, as every nurse knows.
Are you sure that any of us, young or old, like the real thing as well as we like an artistic imitation of it? I mean, is not the real thing accursed? Are not the best beloved always the good actors rather than the true sufferers? Is not love always falsified in novels and plays to make it endurable? I have noticed in myself a great delight in pictures of the saints and of Our Lady, but when I fall under that most terrible curse of the priest's lot, The curse of Joseph pursued by his wife of Potiphar, I am invariably repelled and terrified.
Are you speaking now as a saint, Father Anthony, or as a solicitor?
There is no difference. There is not one Christian rule for solicitors and another one for saints. Their hearts are alike, and their way of salvation is along the same road.
But few there be that find it. Can you find it for us, Anthony?
It lies broad before you. It is the way to destruction that is narrow and tortuous. Marriage is an abomination which the church has founded to cast out and replace by the communion of saints. I learned that from every marriage settlement I drew up as a solicitor, no less than from inspired revelation. You have set yourselves here to put your sin before you in black and white, and you can't agree upon or endure one article of it.
Certainly rather odd that the whole thing seems to fall to pieces the moment you touch it.
You see, when you give the devil fair play, he loses his case. He has not been able to produce even the first clause of a working agreement, so I'm afraid we can't wait for him any longer.
Then the community will have to do without my children.
Cecil will have to do without me.
And I positively will not marry St. John if he is not clever enough to make some provision for my looking after Reggie.
And the world will come to an end with this generation, I suppose.
Can't nothing be done, my lord?
You can make divorce reasonable and decent, that's all.
Thank you for nothing. If you will only make marriage reasonable and decent, you can do as you like about divorce. I have not stated my deepest objection to marriage, and I don't intend to. There are certain rights I will not give any person over me.
I think it jolly hard that a man should support his wife for years and lose the chance of getting a really good wife, and then have her refuse to be a wife to him.
I'm not going to discuss it with you, Reggie. If your sense of personal honor doesn't make you understand, nothing will.
I am still awaiting my instructions.
I suppose, after all, marriage is better than, the usual alternative.
What right have you to say so? You know that the sins that are wasting and maddening this unhappy nation are those committed in wedlock.
Well, the single ones can't afford to indulge their affections as the same as married people.
Go away with it all, I say. You have your master's commandments. Obey them.
I really must point out to you, Father Anthony, that the early Christian rules of life were not made to last because the early Christians did not believe that the world itself was going to last. Now we know that we shall have to go through with it. We have found out that there are millions of years behind us, and we know that there are millions before us. Mrs. Bridgenorth's question remains unanswered. How is the world to go on? You say that is our business. That is the business of providence. But the modern Christian view is that we are here to do the business of providence and nothing else. The question is, how? Am I not to use my reason to find out why? Isn't that what my reason is for? Well, all my reason tells me at the present is that you are an impracticable lunatic.
Ah, does that help?
No.
Then pray for light.
No, I'm a snob, not a beggar.
We don't seem to be getting on, do we? Miss Edith, you and Mr. Sykes had better go off to church and settle the right and wrong of it afterwards. It'll ease your minds, believe me. I speak from experience. You will burn your boats, as one might say.
We should never burn our boats. It is death in life.
Well, Father, I will say for you that you have views of your own and are not afraid to out with them. But some of us are of a more cheerful disposition. On the borough council now, you would be in a minority of one. You must take human nature as it is.
Upon what compulsion must I? I'll take divine nature as it is. I'll not hold a candle to the devil.
Well, that's a very unchristian way of treating the devil.
Well, we don't seem to be getting any further, do we?
Will you give it up and get married, Edith?
No. What I propose seems to me quite reasonable.
Oh, and you, Lesbia?
Never.
Never is a long word, Lesbia. Don't say it.
Don't pity me, Alice, please. As I said before, I am an English lady. Quite prepared to do without anything I can't have on honourable conditions.
I'm still waiting for my instructions.
Well, we don't seem to be getting along, do we?
You said that before, Reggie. Do not repeat yourself.
Oh, bother.
Oh, pshaw! So much for the contract.
By your leave there, gentlemen, make way for the mayoress. Way for the worshipful of the mayoress, my lords and gentlemen. By your leave, gentlemen, way for the worshipful mayoress. And we will now take our break, ladies and gentlemen. Let's recommence at 3:05.
David, are you going to repeat that line when we start?
I'm going to say when we start, Mrs. George, my lord.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to know.
David,
Yeah.
I think we're going to run over the time you projected.
Well, I don't think we're. Let's see.
Can you?
Yes, and I shall turn.
Maybe you're right, but if you have to go, I'll just fill in for you.
Okay. Or maybe Paula, I'm sure Paula or Deborah could make it work with their characters. I'll push it as far as I can, but I can't cancel it.
Got a hot date?
No, I have an appointment. And you can't cancel it, otherwise you pay for it. I know, it's so exciting. How are you doing? Are we still being recorded?
Yes.
Oh.
Every thought we switch.
Well, thank you.
You just muted yourself. How you doing, Lair? Bye, Lair.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude.
That's okay. If you gotta go, you gotta go.
We're being recorded, so I won't go into it.
Where are you? Is that real
outside of
behind you?
Boston.
Is that real behind you, or is that virtual?
No, I'm using my wife's computer, and she decided I should have a library.
Oh, your character, okay.
No, for my life.
Oh, you mean that's a real library behind you?
No, it's a real backdrop.
I don't see any of that thing that happens with virtual backgrounds where you
That thing you do?
Yeah, it looks fine.
Look at the periphery of my head at times. There's a lag.
It looks
Look
fine.
on the left-hand side.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The book is eating my ear. My goodness. How are you doing, Ben?
Pretty good. I'm glad the world is coming back.
For the moment.
I'm in my office, which is at Columbus Circle, and boy, a year ago today, it was a ghost town down here.
Oh, yeah.
It was like post-apocalyptic. You'd look down Broadway towards the theater district, and there's like all the buildings and the cars and nobody out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and pretty soon the components of that human throng will be different, because theater will be back. For how long, who knows, but it'll be back.
I hope so, man. I got to sing in the reopening of a theater on Memorial Day, and just the vibe in the room was just great.
Well, at that point, we didn't know the extent of the effectiveness of the antis.
Excuse me.
Hmm.
You live in Boston, is that it?
I'm sorry, please?
Do you live in Boston?
No.
No, you said we're in Boston, I thought.
Yeah, we are. We're outside of Boston because I had told David before, but there was a family health crisis, and which we found out about late last night, and then very early this morning drove up to outside of Boston.
Oh my goodness! From New Jersey?
I'm sorry, please.
From New Jersey? Is that where you?
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
And currently, my wife is starting to deal with part of it, and I have custody of her computer for a couple of hours because in haste of trying to jettison ourselves from New Jersey, I left my my power cable in New Jersey.
Oh boy!
So,
well, hang in there. Best wishes.
Thank you, and to all.
Oh, sorry, you must be fried after that drive.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But at least I have all these books.
It doesn't show though, and
it
may I
doesn't.
say, I think this is just splendid. I've been able to be the audience, and I'm enjoying it immensely.
Well, it's a lovely, lovely, thought-provoking piece.
Yes, yes, it is.
I can't for the life of me see how this play was ever done in one long sitting. They must have taken a clip that hardly the audience could understand a word, because it's
long.
It's long. I think it might even be longer than Miss Alliance in that respect.
Maybe. I think it might.
Yeah.
But people's tolerance in those days for sitting and listening to an avalanche of words for a long time was much greater.
This is true.
With Shaw, I mean, insisting on no cuts,
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about it? Because maybe when we're not recording, we can talk about it, because I have
I wouldn't dream of trying to do it that way. I mean, it's too much.
I love the Prescient's point about vaccines.
Vaccination, that's a great line for Brett.
Yes.
I literally started laughing.
No, it's so prescient about so many things.
But I also think they probably had 2 intermissions too, which was common in those days.
And probably fainting couches too.
One intermission, I think. Well, it depends on where you take it. I originally had, in my script, I had it marked at a different spot for an intermission just before Soames' entrance. But I think for this particular reading, it works much better, leaving everyone wondering, cliffhanger, wondering what Mrs. George is going to be like, when she finally arrives.
Well, it's almost as good as Waiting for Scarpia. Not quite.
Well, you don't have to wait as long for Scarpia.
Yeah, and it's got better music.
Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you my story? But when I worked out here, actually in the next parish, I was the cantor for the St. Sebastian's Church in the next parish over, and the Monsignor was noted for being the most difficult pastor in the entire Brooklyn Queens Diocese.
Oh, geez.
And he and the organist heartily hated each other. And so I was in the front of the church, and he was in the organ loft, a full football field away practically from me. It's because the St. Sebastian's is actually a converted old movie theater.
Oh.
And he used to warn me just before, because the Monsignor had a habit of coming in ready to start the mass a couple of minutes early, just to see if he could catch us off guard. So what the organist, what Matt would do to warn me that the Monsignor had entered the church was play the Baron Scarpia chords from Tosca. And nobody in church got it. Nobody in the church got it but me,
That's depressing.
Or he could have played the Flying Monkeys theme from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. He used to sneak it. He used to sneak in when he was, and he had to do some fill-in music. He would sneak in all kinds of stuff, little bits from Pirates of Penzance or whatever.
Oh God!
Nobody got any of it.
Wasn't Julius Rudel notorious and/or famous for interpolating a lot of stuff when he was accompanying on the keyboard for recitatives in Mozart and stuff?
I don't think I remember. I don't think I've ever heard
believe
that.
I had heard that.
Google that. I love stories like that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look into that. Julius,
there was one conductor that we had at one point or another at Lake George who got into profound trouble for interpolations in Don Giovanni.
Who was that? Do you remember?
Stephen Kaczynski.
Yeah, I know Stephen. I don't know how he is these days. No, he used to play occasionally the piano for our GNS gigs with Bob, And then I actually, again, thanks to that connection, I wound up down at Delaware Opera doing La Pericole.
Oh, cool.
She conducted. Yeah.
La Pericole?
La Pericole. I often
Sounds like something podiatrists remove.
no. The name of a character, Peruvian street singer.
They may remove it, but then it's Offenbach.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Couple more minutes before we
We're playing Alsvik.
Oh, this group is too clever by half.
Or quarter.
Also, you guys, I just wanted to let you know I have like 4 lines coming in later, and I'm gonna be doing them from my car. Okay.
Okay, as long as you get them in.
Is that appropriate?
Say it again.
Is that
That's all you
appropriate
have
for
to
those
say,
particular
Nicole.
lines?
I am. I do disappear for quite a while, and then I'm eloping. So I think it fits the vibes. I just wanted to, I'll be joining from my phone in a moment. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see you though, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
there won't
absolutely.
be a disembodied voice.
No, I'll be fancy in my friend's Tesla, but I'll be I'll be back.
Okay, yeah.
Nice job, Cecil,
This is
getting her a Tesla
does
for the
truly take
honeymoon.
over.
Thanks,
None of us have much of a look in.
I don't have a ton of money.
My
I
Tesla.
do have is Tesla worthy.
Depends on cars.
Yeah, it's not my Tesla, but maybe with this new contract, my marriage contract, it will be.
You have no honeymoon, but you do get a Tesla.
Yes, thank
But
God.
it's all in Bitcoin.
Yeah. All in Dogecoin, not Bitcoin. We're gonna do Dogecoin.
Oh,
we're up
Musk,
with the
a little
times.
musky.
Yeah, thanks, Elon. I'm gonna go elope.
All right. So we'll see you later. I think it's just about time to reconvene.
We have a minion.
Is everybody here?
We all on it at the top.
Everybody here that we need?
Well,
We don't have a bishop.
The bishop is he here?
Yes, we do.
We do. Ah.
Nope, Angus is there.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
good, good.
All right. Here we go then.
That's Angus of God.
Oh, wow.
Nobody's ever said that before.
Here we go. At the ready. Mrs. George, my lord.
Here is your ring, my lord, and here am I. It's your doing, remember, not mine.
Good of you to come.
Vicky, are you there? Oh dear.
No,
Have we lost Vicky?
correct.
But she said she didn't say she had to leave this early.
No, she's
All right, let's hold on a minute until we get it.
Okay.
We'll start again.
We'll hold and restart. Does anyone want to call her?
I can call her.
Okay.
Give her a ring, if you would, please.
I think she's already married.
No, you can still call. You have to think of this piece.
Yeah. Yes, having the somewhat unusual name in America of Angus, every time I came up against particularly Catholics of one sort or another, they had all experienced a Sister Agnes at some point in their education. So I was regularly referred to you as Agnes. Got used to it.
She's trying to get back on. She got kicked off.
When occasionally doing a
Everybody
church
hear that?
service.
yes.
Yes.
Was she there?
Hang on a second. Oh, I'm sorry. folks, I
Occasionally
have my
doing
sound on.
a church service, and you run across
trying to get-
I don't know if she's gotten knocked off or what.
She got kicked. Hello, can you guys hear me? She got
Yes.
kicked off. She's trying to get back on.
Kate,
hear
can
you.
you help her? Oh, Paul's On it.
Paul's on it. Take care, Vic.
We are safe.
You there?
Don't see it
I
yet.
went and left the studio.
Dear.
Vicky's trying to get back on. Somebody said Paul's helping her.
I'm sorry?
Well, I saw his name across the top, but maybe it wasn't really he. Kate, were you made a co-host?
I don't think I was. I don't see any.
Oh, I thought he made you one.
I thought
Somebody's a co-host. Well, Marin is.
Yeah, I'm.
There.
Yeah, I'm a co-host, and so is Kate. But I'm not seeing Vicky yet as an attendee.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye out, and as soon as she does,
She was
then
here
we can
already
get back in.
as a regular. She's
just want to keep an eye open.
Got knocked off somehow.
Yeah. Well, when people get disconnected, sometimes they don't come back because we don't have panelist links for this. She'll probably come in as an attendee, and then I'll have to.
She said, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? She's on the phone with me. She said it's spinning, which I mean,
yeah.
She said she's trying.
Yeah, I don't see her in the attendee list, but I'm looking.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't either.
They don't see your name in the attendee list.
But when I came in as an attendee, it took a fair bit of time before it registered.
Oh, here she is. Wait, oh no, that's not her. Okay.
Oh. Her message she's saying is Zoom Cloud is not responding.
Oh.
Anybody know what that means?
Can she try her phone instead?
Can't she just do audio?
Yep, that's a.
Hang on, Vic. Hang on.
Can't wait too long. We're gonna have to.
Okay, you ready for the phone number? If I can. Okay. 929-205-6099. Yes. Ready? 048496. She's trying to get on with her cell phone. I gave her the passcode. Meanwhile, how many of you folks from out of town?
Did you know, David?
When does Dorinda enter?
Did you know, David, I used to work with the Madder Market Theatre in Norwich, which was founded by Inigo Monk way back in the early part of the last century, who was a great chum of George Bernard Shaw's. And Shaw gave him the rights to do his plays in perpetuity for no royalties.
Wow.
So there was a Shaw in every season.
I've been to Norwich, but I didn't go to the theater.
Any luck, Beck?
Madder Market was a sort of mock globe indoors in the old Madder Market.
Yeah, I remember that.
Any luck, Vicky? Okay.
Angus, there's another theatre there. Is it the Theatre Royal in Norwich?
Yeah, that's the commercial one.
Yeah, that's the one I've performed in.
Yeah, touring shows and the like. And there was another theatre down by the shore, and the Sewell Barn Theatre on, Black Beauty. Anna Sewell wrote that, and the Sewell Barn was the barn on her brother's estate, and she used to ride over on Black Beauty and stable it there. And that was converted to a theatre. Used to
Wait,
work there
the
too.
horse was real? She didn't.
She did have a horse. Yeah.
Excuse me, Dave. You may want to have a backup plan. She's still trying. I don't know how successful.
My backup plan was to have Deborah read her, I guess. Best I can.
Any luck, Vic?
Yeah, best I can do at this point.
Do you want me to start now?
Well, she's unless she comes back in, we're going to have to go ahead. We've got quite a bit of play to get through.
I'll keep an eye on the attendees.
So I'll start, and then if she comes back, I'll stop.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell her.
Yeah, we've got to go forward, I'm afraid.
People are going to be confused. Oh well.
All right. So here we go. Mrs. George, ma'am.
Here is your ring, my lord, and here am I. It's your doing, remember, not mine.
Good of you to come.
How do you do, Mrs. Collins?
Are you his wife?
The bishop's wife, yes.
What destiny! And you look like any other woman.
My sister, Miss Grantham.
So strangely mixed up with the story of the general's life.
You know the story of his life, then?
Not all. We reached the house before he brought it up to the present day, but enough to know the part played in it by Miss Grantham.
Mrs. Reginald Bridgenorth.
The late Mrs. Reginald Bridgenorth.
Hold your tongue, Reggie. At least have the decency to wait until the decree is made absolute.
Well, you've more time to get married again than he has, haven't you?
Mr. St. John Hotchkiss.
What? That? Young man, do you remember coming into my shop and telling me that my husband's coals were out of place in your cellar, as nature evidently intended them for the roof?
I remember that deplorable impertinence with shame and confusion. You were kind enough to answer that Mr. Collins was looking out for a clever young man to write advertisements and that I could take the job if I liked.
It's still open.
My daughter Edith.
The bride. You're not going to get married like that, are you?
Well, that is just what we are discussing. Will you be so good as to join us and allow us the benefit of your wisdom and experience?
Do you want the beadle as well? He's a married man.
We think there are already too many men to be quite fair to the women.
Right, my lord. Take away that bauble, Joseph. Wait for me wherever you find yourself most comfortable in the neighborhood. Hello, Bill, you've got 'em all on too. Go and hunt up a drink for Joseph, there's a dear. Oh, what, another uniform? Are you the sexton?
My chaplain, Father Anthony.
Oh, Lord, you don't mind, do you?
I mind, but I mind nothing but my duties.
You know everybody now, I think.
Who's this?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Cecil, Mr. Sykes, the bridegroom.
Adorned for the sacrifice, aren't you?
It's doubtful whether there will be going to be any sacrifice.
Well, I want to talk to the women first. Shall we go upstairs and look at the presents and dresses?
If you wish, certainly.
But the men want to hear what you have to say too.
Oh, I'll talk to them afterwards, one by one.
Great heavens.
This way, Mrs. Collins.
Shall we try to get through the last batch of letters whilst they are away, Soames?
Yes, certainly. Excuse me.
Cecil, Reggie, I'm frightfully sorry to desert on this day, but I must bolt. This time it really is pure cowardice. I can't help it.
What are you afraid of?
I don't know. Listen to me. I was a young fool living by myself in London. I ordered my first ton of coals from that woman's husband. At the time, I did not know that it is not true economy to buy the lowest priced article. I thought all coals were alike and tried the 13-shilling kind because it seemed cheap. And it proved, unexpectedly, inferior to the family silkstone. And in the irritation into which the first scuttle threw me, I called at the shop and made an idiot of myself, as she described.
I suppose you did. Laugh at it, man.
Yeah, at that, yes, but there was something worse. Judge of my horror when, calling on the coal merchant to make a trifling complaint at finding my great acting as a battery of quick-firing guns and being confronted by his vulgar wife. I felt in her presence an extraordinary sensation of unrest, of emotion, of unsatisfied need. I not discussed you with the details of the madness and folly that followed that meeting, but it went as far as this, that I actually found myself prowling past the shop at night under a sort of desperate necessity to be near some place where she had been. A hideous temptation to kiss the doorstep because her foot had passed it made me realize how mad I was. I tore myself away from London by the supreme effort, but I was on the point of returning like a needle to a lodestone when the outbreak of war saved me. On the field of battle, the infatuation wore off, the billeter affair made a new man of me. I felt that I had left the follies and the puerilities of the old days behind me forever. But half an hour ago, when the bishop sent off the ring, a sudden grip at the base of my heart filled me with a nameless terror. Me, the fearless. I recognized the cause when she walked in the room. Cecil, this woman is a harpy, a siren, a mermaid, a vampire. There is only one chance for me, flight. Instant, precipitate flight. Make my excuses and forget me. Farewell. Oh, too late, I'm lost.
Mr. Bridgenorth, will you oblige me by leaving me with this young man? I want to talk to him like a mother, on your business.
Oh, do, ma'am. He needs it badly. Come along, Sykes.
Too late. You can't save me now, Cecil. Go. Oh, it's useless to prolong this agony. Fatal woman, if woman you are indeed, and not a fiend in human form.
Is this out of a book, or is it your usual society small talk?
Jibes are useless. The force that is sweeping me away will not spare you. I must know the worst at once. What was your father?
A licensed victualler who married his barmaid. You would call him a publican, most likely.
Oh, then you are a woman totally beneath me. Do you deny it? Do you set up any sort of pretense to be my equal in rank, in age, or in culture?
Have you eaten anything that has disagreed with you?
Inferior.
Thank you. Anything else?
This. I love you. My intentions are not honorable. Scream. Ring the bell. Have me turned out of the house.
Oh, if you could restore this wasted, exhausted heart one ray of the passion that once welled up at the glance, at the touch of a lover, it's you who would scream then, young man. Do you see this face, once fresh and rosy like your own, now scarred and riven by 100 burnt-out fires?
Slate fires, 13 shillings a ton. Fires that shoot out destructive meteors, blinding and burning, sending men into the streets to make fools of themselves.
You seem to have got it pretty bad, St. John.
Don't dare call me St. John.
My name is Zenobia Alexandrina, but you may call me Polly for short.
Your name is Astrith Durga. There's no name yet invented malign enough for you.
Come. Do you really think you're better suited to that young saucebox than her husband? You enjoyed her company when you were only the friend of the family, when there was the husband there to show off against and to take all the responsibility. Are you sure you'll enjoy it as much when you are the husband? She isn't clever, you know. She's only silly clever.
Ugh, need you tell me, fiend that you are?
You amused the husband, didn't you?
He has the more real sense of humour than she. He's better bred. That is not my fault.
My husband has a sense of humour too.
The coal merchant. I mean the slate merchant.
Oh, he would just love to hear you talk. He's been dull lately for want of a change of company and a bit of fresh fun.
And pray, what is your wretched husband's vulgar conviviality to me.
You love me?
I loathe you.
It's the same thing.
Then I am lost.
You may come and see me if you promise to amuse George.
No, I'll insult him, sneer at him, wipe my boots on him.
No, you won't, dear boy. You'll be a perfect gentleman.
Zenobia.
Holly, please.
Mrs. Collins.
Sir?
Something stronger than my reason and common sense is holding my hands and tearing me along. I make no attempt to deny that it can drag me where you please and make me do what you like. But at least let me know your soul as you seem to know mine. Do you love this absurd coal merchant?
Call him George.
Do you love your Georgie Porgy?
Oh, I don't know that I love him. He's my husband, you know. But if I got anxious about George's health and I thought it would nourish him, I would fry you with onions for his breakfast and think nothing of it. George and I are good friends. George belongs to me. No other men may come and go, but George goes on forever.
Yes, the husband soon becomes nothing but a habit. Listen, I suppose this detestable fascination you have for me is love.
Well, any sort of feeling for a woman is called love nowadays.
Do you love me?
My love is not quite so cheap an article as that, my lad. I wouldn't cross the street to have another look at you. Not yet. I'm not starving for love like the robins in winter, as the good ladies you're accustomed to are. You'll have to be very clever and very good and very real if you're to interest me. If George takes a fancy to you and you amuse him enough, I'll just tolerate you coming in and out occasionally for, well, say a month. If you can make a friend of me in that time, so much the better for you. If you can touch my poor dying heart, even for an instant, I'll bless you and never forget you. You may try, if George takes to you.
I'm to come on liking for the month?
On condition that you drop Mrs. Reginald.
But she won't drop me. Do you suppose I ever wanted to marry her? I was a homeless bachelor, and I felt quite happy at their house as their friend. Leo was an amusing little devil, but I liked Reginald much more than I liked her. She didn't understand. One day she came to me and told me that the inevitable bad had happened. I had tact enough not to ask her what the inevitable was, and I gathered presently that she had told Reginald that their marriage was a mistake and that she loved me and could no longer see me breaking my heart for her in suffering silence. Oh, what could I say? What could I do? What can I say now? What can I do now?
Tell her that the habit of falling in love with other men's wives is growing on you, and that I'm your latest.
What? Throw her over when she has thrown Reginald over for me?
You won't then. Very well. Sorry we shan't meet again. I should have liked to see more of you for George's sake. Goodbye.
Zenobia.
I thought I had made a difficult conquest. Now I see we're only one of those poor petticoat hunting creatures that any woman can pick up. Not for me, thank you.
Oh, don't be an ass, Polly.
Ah, well, that's better.
Can't you see that I mayn't throw Leo over because I should only be too glad to do it? It would be dishonorable.
Will you be happy if you marry her?
No, great heaven, no.
Will she be happy when she finds you out?
She's incapable of happiness, but she's not incapable of the pleasure of holding a man against his will.
Right, young man. You will tell her, please, that you love me. Before everybody, mind, the very next time you see her.
But
Those are my orders, St. John. I can't have you marry another woman until George is tired of you.
Oh, if I only didn't selfishly want to obey you.
Where have you been all this time?
I'm afraid my nerves were just a little upset by our conversation. I went into the garden, had a smoke. I'm all right now.
A smoke? Why, you said she couldn't bear it.
Oh, good heavens, I forgot. It's such a natural thing to do somehow. Yeah.
He's been smoking again.
So my nose tells me.
Lesbia, I am sorry. I'm very sorry. But if I gave it up, I should become so melancholy and irritable that you would be the first to implore me to take to it again.
That's true. Women drive their husbands into all sorts of wickedness to keep them in good humor. St. John, be off with you. This doesn't concern you.
Please don't disturb yourself, St. John. Boxer's broken heart has been worn on his sleeve too long for any pretense of privacy.
You are cruel, Lesbia. Devilishly cruel.
You are vulgar, Boxer.
In what way? I ask as an expert in vulgarity.
Two ways. First, he talks as if the only thing of any importance in life was which particular woman he shall marry. Second, he has no self-control.
Women are not all the same to me, Lesbia.
Why should they be, pray? Women are all different. It's the men who are all the same. Besides, what does Miss Grantham know about either men or women? She's got too much self-control.
And pray, how does that prevent me from knowing as much about men and women as people who have no self-control?
Because it frightens people into behaving themselves before you. And then how can you tell what they really are? Look at me. I was a spoilt child. My brothers and sisters were well brought up like all children of respectable publicans. So should I have been if I hadn't been the youngest. 10 years younger than my youngest brother. Well, my parents were tired of doing their duty by their children by that time, and they spoilt me for all they were worth. I never knew what it was to want money or anything that money could buy. When I wanted my own way, I had nothing to do but scream for it till I got it. When I was annoyed, I didn't control myself. I scratched and called names. Did you ever, after you were grown up, pull a grown-up woman's hair? Did you ever bite a grown-up man? Did you ever call both of them every name you could lay your tongue to?
No.
Well, I did. I know what a woman is like when her hair's pulled. I know what a man is like when he's bit. I know what they're both like when you tell them what you really feel about them. And that's how I know more of the world than you.
The Chinese know what a man is like when he is cut into 1,000 pieces or boiled in oil. That sort of knowledge is of no use to me. I'm afraid we shall never get on with another. Mrs. George, I live like a fencer, always on guard. I like to be confronted with people who are always on guard. I hate sloppy people, slovenly people, people who can't sit up straight, sentimental people.
Oh, sentimental, your grandmother. You don't learn to hold your own in the world by standing on guard, but by attacking and getting well hammered yourself.
I'm not a prize fighter, Mrs. Collins. If I can't get a thing without the indignity of fighting for it, I do without it.
Do you? Does it strike you that if we were all as clever as you at doing without, well, there wouldn't be much to live for, would there?
Read, Lesbia, the things you do without are the things you don't want.
That's not bad for this silly soldier man. Yes, Boxer. The truth is, I don't want you enough to make the very unreasonable sacrifices required by marriage. And yet that is exactly why I ought to be married. Just because I have the qualities my country wants most, I shall go barren to my grave. whilst the women who have neither the strength to resist marriage nor the intelligence to understand its infinite dishonour will make the England of the future.
Well, I shall not ask you again, Lesbia.
Thank you, Boxer.
Oh, you're quite done with him, are you?
As far as marriage is concerned, yes. The field is clear for you, Mrs. George.
She's a nice woman, that. And a sort of beauty about her, too, different from anyone else.
Oh, Mrs. Collins, thank you. Thank you 1,000 times. You have thawed the long frozen springs. Forgive me, and thank you. Bless you.
Just caught the old dear warrior on the bounce, eh?
Unfaithful to me already?
I'm not your property, young man. Don't you think it. You understand that? Oh! You dare do that again, you young blackguard, and I'll jam one of these chairs in your face. Now, you shall not see me for another month.
I shall pay my first visit to your husband this afternoon.
You'll see what he'll say to you when I tell him what you've just done.
What can he say? What dare he say?
Well, suppose he kicks you out of the house.
How can he? I've fought 7 duels with sabres. I've muscles of iron. Nothing hurts me, not even broken bones. Fighting is absolutely uninteresting to me because it doesn't frighten me or amuse me, and I always win. Your husband is in these respects an average man, probably. He will be horribly afraid of me, and if under the stimulus of your presence and for your sake, and because it is the right thing to do among vulgar people, he were to attack me, I should simply defeat him and humiliate him. Sooner than expose him to that, you would suffer 1,000 stolen kisses, wouldn't you?
You young viper.
You're in my power. That is one of the oversights of your code of honor for husbands. The man who can bully them and can insult their wives with impunity. Tell him if you dare. If I choose to take 10 kisses, how will you prevent me?
You come within reach of me and I'll not leave a hair on your head.
I've got your hands.
You've not got my teeth. Let go, or I'll bite. I'll tell you, let go.
Bite away, I shall taste quite as nice as George.
You beast, let me go. Do you call yourself a gentleman to use your brute strength against a woman?
You are stronger than me in every way but this. Do you think I will give up my one advantage? Promise you'll receive me when I call this afternoon.
After what you've just done, not if it was to save my life.
I'll amuse George.
He won't be in.
Do you mean that we should be alone?
That's cooled you, has it?
When will George be at home?
It won't matter to you whether he's at home or not. The door will be slammed in your face whenever you call.
No servant in London is strong enough to close a door that I mean to keep open. You can't escape. If you persist, I'll go into the coal trade, make George's acquaintance on the coal exchange, and coax him to take me home with him and make your acquaintance.
We have no use for you, young man, neither George nor I.
Yes, you have. George can't fight for you. I can.
You bully. You low bully.
Oh, you have the courage of fascination. I have the courage and a pair of fists. We're both bullies, Polly.
You have a mischievous tongue. That's enough to keep you out of my house.
It must be rather a house of cards. A word from me to George, just the right word said in the right way, and down comes your house.
Oh, that's why I'll die sooner than let you into it.
Then as surely as I live, I'll enter the coal trade tomorrow. George's taste for amusing company will deliver him into my hands. Before a month passes, your home will be at my mercy.
Do you think I'll let myself be driven into a trap like this?
You're in it already. Marriage is a trap. You are married. Any man who has the power to spoil your marriage has the power to spoil your life. I have that power over you.
You mean it?
I do.
Well, spoil my marriage and be
Well, Polly.
Sooner than be your slave, I'd face any unhappiness.
What? Even for George?
There must be honor between me and George, happiness or no happiness. Do your worst.
Are you really game, Polly? Dare you defy me?
If you ask me another question, I shan't be able to keep my hands off you.
Well, that settles it. Polly, I adore you. We were born for one another. As I happen to be a gentleman, I'll never do anything to annoy or injure you except that I reserve the right to give you a black eye if you bite me. And you'll never get rid of me now to the end of your life.
I shall get rid of you if the beetle has to brain you with a mace for it.
You shan't.
Shan't I, though?
No, you shan't. I have one card left to play that you've forgotten. Why were you so unlike yourself when you spoke to the bishop?
Stop. Not that. You shall respect that if you respect nothing else. I forbid you. What are you doing? Get up. Get up. Don't be a fool.
Polly, I ask you on my knees to let me make George's acquaintance at his home this afternoon, and I shall remain on my knees till the bishop comes in and sees us. What will he think of you then?
Where's the poker?
Oh, don't hit him, Mrs. Collins. He's my guest. Now come, you are in the house of your friends. Can we help you?
Go in there. You're not wanted here.
You understand, Bishop, that Mrs. Collins is not to blame for this scene. I'm afraid I've been rather irritating.
I can quite believe it, St. John. I'm sorry you've been worried, but never mind him. A little pluck, a little gaiety of heart, a little prayer, and you'll be laughing at him.
Never fear. I have all that. It was as much my fault as his, and I should have put him in his place with a clip of that poker on the side of his head if you hadn't come in.
You might have put him in his coffin that way, Mrs. Collins, and I should have been very sorry because we are all fond of St. John.
Yes, it's your duty to rebuke me, but you think I don't know?
No, I don't rebuke you. Who am I that I should rebuke you? Besides, I know there are discussions in which the poker is the only possible argument.
My lord, be earnest with me. I'm a very funny woman, I dare say, but I come from the same workshop as you. I heard you say that yourself years ago.
Oh, quite so. But then I'm a very funny bishop. Since we're both funny people, let us not forget that humour is a divine attribute.
Oh, I know nothing about divine attributes or whatever you call them. But I can feel when I am being belittled. It was from you that I learnt first to respect myself. It was through you that I came to be able to walk safely through many wild and willful paths. Oh, don't go back on your own teaching.
Oh, I'm not a teacher, only a fellow traveller of whom you asked the way. I pointed ahead of myself as well as you.
As I am a living woman this day, if I find you out to be a fraud, I'll kill myself.
What? Kill yourself for finding out something? For becoming a wiser and therefore a better woman? What a bad reason.
Well, I have sometimes thought of killing you and then killing myself.
Why on earth should you kill yourself? Not to mention me.
So that we might keep our assignation in heaven.
Mrs. Collins, you are incognita passionata.
You read my letters then. Oh, thank you.
And I have broken the spell by making you come here. Oh, can you ever forgive me?
You couldn't know that it was only the coal merchant's wife, could you?
Why do you say only the coal merchant's wife?
Many people would laugh at it.
Poor people. It's so hard to know the right place to laugh, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't mean to make you think the letters were from a fine lady. I wrote on cheap paper, and I never could spell.
Well, neither could I. So that told me nothing.
Oh, one thing I should like you to know.
Yes?
We didn't cheat your friend. They were as good as we could do at 13 shillings a ton.
Ah, that's important. Thank you for telling me.
I have something else to say, but will you please ask somebody to come and stay here while we talk? Not a woman, if you don't mind. Not a man either.
Not a man and not a woman. We have no children left, Mrs. Collins. They're all grown up and married.
That other clergyman would do.
What, the sexton?
Yes. He didn't mind my calling him that, did he? It was only my ignorance.
No, not at all. Soames, Anthony. Call him father. He likes it. Mrs. Collins wishes you to join us, Anthony.
You don't mind, Dad, do you? Oh, that is what you told me to call him, wasn't it?
I am called Father Anthony, Mrs. Collins, but it does not matter what you call me.
Mrs. Collins has something to say to me that she wants you to hear.
I am listening.
Now.
My lord, you should never have married.
This woman is inspired. Listen to her, my lord.
I married because I was so much in love with Alice that all the difficulties and doubts and dangers of marriage seemed to me the merest moonshine.
Yes. Oh, it's mean to let poor things in for so much while they're in that state. Would you marry now that you know better? If you were a widower?
I'm old now. It wouldn't matter.
But would you, if it did matter?
I think I should marry again lest anyone should imagine I had found marriage unhappy with Alice.
Are you fonder of your wife than of your salvation?
Oh, very much. When you meet a man who is very particular about his salvation, look out for a woman who is very particular about her character and marry them to one another. They'll make a perfect pair. I advise you to fall in love, Anthony.
I?
Yes, you. Think of what it would do for you. For her sake, you would come to care unselfishly and diligently for money, instead of being selfishly and lazily indifferent to it. For her sake, you would come to care in the same way for preferment. For her sake, you would come to care for your health, your appearance, the good opinion of your fellow creatures, and all the really important things that make men work and strive instead of mooning and nursing their salvation.
In one word, for the sake of one deadly sin, I should come to care for all the others.
Saint Anthony! Oh, tempt him, Mrs. Collins, tempt him.
Take care, my lord. You still have the power to make me obey your commands. And do you, Mr. Sexton, be aware of an empty heart?
Yes. Nature abhors a vacuum, Anthony. I would not dare go about with an empty heart. Why, the first girl I met would fly into it by mere atmospheric pressure. Alice keeps them out now. Mrs. Collins knows.
I know more than either of you. One of you has not yet exhausted his first love. The other has not yet reached it. But I...
What is the matter? Are you ill, Mrs. Collins? So, there is a glass of water in the study. Quick.
No, don't call. Don't bring anything. Oh, can't you hear anything?
Nothing unusual.
No music?
No.
Do you see nothing? Not a great light?
We are still walking in darkness.
Oh, put your hand on my forehead. The hand with the ring.
There was a certain woman, the wife of a coal merchant, which had been a great sinner.
You prophesy falsely, Anthony. Never in all my life have I done anything that was not ordained for me. I've been myself. I've not been afraid of myself. And at last I have escaped from myself and am become a voice for them that are afraid to speak and a cry for the hearts that break in silence.
Is she inspired?
Marvelous. Hush.
I have earned the right to speak. I have dared, I have gone through. I have not fallen withered in the fire. I have come at last out beyond to the back of God's speed.
And what do you see there at the back of God's speed?
Give us your message.
When you loved me, I gave you the whole sun and stars to play with. I gave you eternity in a single moment, strength of the mountains in one clasp of your arms, and the volume of all the seas in one impulse of your souls. A moment only, but was it not enough? Were you not paid then for all the rest of your struggle on earth? Must I mend your clothes and sweep your floors as well? Was it not enough? I paid the price without bargaining. I bore the children without flinching. Was that a reason for heaping fresh burdens on me? I carried the child in my arms. Must I carry the father too? When I opened the gates of paradise, were you blind? Was it nothing to you? When all the stars sang in your ears and all the winds swept you into the heart of heaven, were you deaf? Were you dull? Was I no more to you than a bone to a dog? Was it not enough? We spent eternity together, and you ask me for a little lifetime more? We possessed all the universe together, and you ask me to give you my scanty wages as well. I have given you the greatest of all things, and you ask me to give you little things. I gave you your own soul, and you ask me for my body as a plaything. Was it not enough? Was it not enough?
Do you understand this, my lord?
I have that advantage over you, Anthony, thanks to Alice. Oh, your hand is very cold. Can you come down to earth? Do you remember who I am and who you are?
It was enough for me. I did not ask to meet you, to touch you. When you spoke to my soul years ago from your pulpit, you opened the doors of my salvation to me, and now they stand open forever. It was enough. I have asked you for nothing since. I ask you for nothing now. I have lived. It is enough. I have had my wages, and I am ready for my work. I thank you and bless you and leave you. You are happier in that than I am, for when I do for men what you did for me, I have no thanks and no blessing. I am their prey, and there is no rest from their loving and no mercy from their loathing.
You must take us as we are, Mrs.
No,
Collins.
no, take us as we are capable of becoming.
Take me as I am. I ask no more. Yes. Come in, come in.
Will you be so kind as to tell me whether I am dreaming? In there I have heard Mrs. Collins saying the strangest things, and not a syllable from you two.
My lord, is this possession by the devil?
Or the ecstasy of a saint?
Or the convulsion of the pythoness on the tripod?
May not three be one?
You are paining and tiring me with idle questions. You are dragging me back to myself. You are tormenting me with your evil dreams of saints and devils and what was it? But the pythoness. The pythoness. I don't understand. I am a woman, a human creature like yourselves. Will you not take me as I am?
Yes, but shall we take you and burn you?
Or take you and canonize you?
Or take you as a matter of course? We must get her out of this. It's dangerous. May I suggest that you shall be Antony's devil and the bishop's saint and my adored Polly?
What? What's that? Who kissed my hand? Was it you? Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, not at all. I am not repudiating that honor. Allow me.
Thank you for that. Oh, it was not the sexton, was it?
I?
It was I, Polly, your ever faithful.
Let me catch you doing it again, that's all. How do you come there? I sent you away. Oh, what the goodness gracious has been happening?
As far as I can make out, you have been having a very charming and eloquent sort of fit.
What? My second sight? Oh, how I have prayed that it might come to me if I ever met you. And now it has come. How stunning. You may believe every word I said. I can't remember it now, but it was something that was just bursting to be said. And so it laid hold of me and said itself. That's how it is, you see.
Have you been out, my dear?
Yes.
With Cecil?
Yes.
Have you come to an understanding?
You'd better tell them, Edie.
Can anybody oblige me with some tobacco? I've finished mine and my nerves are still far from settled.
Wait a moment, Boxer. Cecil has something important to tell us.
We've done it, that's all.
Done what, Cecil?
Got married, of course.
Married? Who gave you away?
This gentleman did. Oh, I thought he came in with us. He's gone downstairs, I suppose. The beadle.
Beadle? What the devil did he do that for?
I don't know. I didn't make him any bargain with him. How much ought I give him, Mrs. Collins?
5 shillings. I want to rest for a moment. There, in your study. I saw it here.
By all means, turn my brother out if he disturbs you. Soames, bring the letters out here.
He won't be offended at my offering it, will he?
Not he. He touches children with the mace to cure them of ringworm for 4p apiece.
Well, Edith, I'm a little disappointed, I must say. However, I'm glad it was done by somebody in a public uniform.
He goes to her and they meet near the oak chest. Oh, sorry. Oh, Alice, my love, they're married.
Oh, well, that's all right. Better tell Collins. You have both given in, have you?
Not at all. We've provided for everything.
How?
Before going to the church, we went to the office of that insurance company. What's his name, Cecil?
The British Family Insurance Corporation. It insures you against poor relations and all sorts of family contingencies.
It's consented to insure Cecil and I against libel actions brought against him on my account. It'll give us specially low terms because I'm a bishop's daughter.
And I've given Edie my solemn word that if I ever commit a crime, I'll knock her down before witness and go off to Brighton with another lady.
That's what you call providing for everything.
Do you make him see there are no worms before he knocks you down, Edith? Where's Reggie?
Yeah, what's the matter?
What's the matter? You well may ask. While Edie and Cecil were at the insurance agency, I took a taxi and went off to your lodgings. And a nice mess I found everything in. Your clothes are in a disgraceful state. Your liver pad has been made into a kettle holder. You're no more fit to be left to yourself than a 1-year-old baby.
Oh, I can't be bothered looking after things like that. I'm all right.
You're not. You're a disgrace. You never consider that you're a disgrace to me. You only think of yourself. You must come home with me and be taken proper care of. My conscience will not allow me to live with you like a pig. You must stay with me until I marry St. John, and then we can adopt you or something.
No, I'm dashed if I'll be adopted by St. John. You can adopt him if you like.
I suggest that would really be the better plan, Leo. I've a confession to make to you. I'm not the man you took me for. Your objection to Reggie was that he had low tastes.
Was it? By George.
I said slovenly habits. I never thought he had really low tastes until I saw that woman in court. How could he have chosen such a creature and let her write to him after?
Is this fair? I never...
Of course you didn't, Reggie. Don't be silly, Leo. It's I who really have low tastes.
You!
I've fallen in love with a coal merchant's wife. I adore her. I would rather have one of her bootlaces than a lock of your hair.
Oh, damn scoundrel! How dare you throw over my wife like that before my face?
Don't take any notice of him, Reggie. Go at once and get that odious decree demolished or annulled or whatever it is. Tell Sir Goral Barnes that I have changed my mind. I might have known that you were too clever to be really a gentleman.
All the problems appear to be solving themselves.
Except mine.
My dear Lesbia, you see what has happened here today. Now I put it to you. Does it not show you the folly of not marrying?
No, I can't say it does. And you have been smirking again.
But you drive me to it, Lesbia. I can't help it.
Well, I won't scold you today. I feel in particularly good humour just now.
May I ask why, Lesbia?
To think that after all the dangers of the morning, I am still unmarried, still independent, still my own mistress, still a glorious, strong-minded old maid of old England.
Do you find any real happiness in being your own mistress? Wouldn't it not be more generous? Would you not be happier as someone else's mistress?
Boxer!
No. You must know, my dear Lesbia, that I was not using the word in its improper sense. I am sometimes unfortunate in my choice of expression, but you know what I mean. I feel sure you would be happier as my wife.
I dare say I should, in a frowsy sort of way. But I prefer my dignity and independence. I'm afraid I think this rage for happiness rather vulgar.
Oh, very well, Lesbia. I shan't ask you again.
You will, Boxer, but it will be of no use. Someday I hope to make a friend of you, and then we shall get on very nicely.
I think you are hard, Lesbia. I shall make a fool of myself if I remain here. Alice, I shall go into the garden for a while.
I think everything is in order now, ma'am.
By the way, could you oblige me?
Oh, certainly, General.
I don't believe there's a man in England who really and truly loves his wife as he loves his pipe.
By the way, what has happened to the wedding party?
I don't know. There wasn't a soul in the church when we married except the pew opener and the curate who did the job.
They had all gone home.
But the bridesmaids?
Me and the Beadle have been all over the place in a couple of taxis, ma'am, and we've collected them all. They were a good deal disappointed on account of their dresses and thought it all rather irregular, but they've agreed to come to the breakfast. The truth is, they were wild with curiosity to know how it all happened. The organist held on until the organ was nigh worn out, and himself worse than the organ. He asked me particularly to tell you, my lord, that he held back Mendelssohn till the very last, but when that was gone, he thought he might as well go too. So he played God Save the King and cleared out the church. He's coming to the breakfast to explain. We've lost Leo. She got knocked off. Somebody help her back in.
Please remember, Collins, that there's no truth whatever in the rumour that I'm separated from my husband, or that there is or ever has been anything between me and Mr. Hotchkiss.
Bless you, ma'am. One could always see that. Will you receive here or in the hall, ma'am?
In the hall, Alfred. You and Boxer must go there and be ready to keep the first arrivals talking till we come. We have to dress Edith. Come, Lesbia. Come, Leo. We must all help. Now, Edith. Collins, we shall want you when Miss Edith's dressed to look over her veil and things and see that they're all done right.
Yes, ma'am. Anything we'd like mentioned about Miss Lesbia, ma'am?
No, she won't have the general. I think you must take that as final.
What a pity, ma'am. A fine lady wasted, ma'am.
I'm going to the hall, Collins, to receive. Reggie, go and tell Boxer, and come, both of you, to help with the small talk. Come, Cecil.
You've always talked a precious lot about behaving like a gentleman. Well, if you think you've behaved like a gentleman to Leo, you're mistaken. And I shall have to take her part, remember that.
I understand. Your doors are closed to me.
Oh, no, don't be hasty. I think you should like to drop in after a while, you know. She gets so cross and upset when there's nobody to liven up the house a bit.
I'll do my best.
Righto. You won't mind, old chap, do you?
It's fate. I've touched coal and my hands are black, but they're clean. So long, Reggie.
Excuse me, sir, but do you stay to breakfast? Your name is on one of the covers, and I should like to change it if you're not remaining.
How do I know? Is my destiny longer in my own hand? Go ask she who must be obeyed.
Has Mrs. George taken a fancy to you, sir?
Would she had. Worse, man, worse. I've taken a fancy to Mrs. George.
Don't despair, sir. If George likes your conversation, you'll find their house a very pleasant one, livelier than Mr. Reginald's was, I dare say.
Polly?
Oh, if it's come to Polly already, sir, I should say you were all right.
Your brother-in-law wishes to know whether I'm to stay for the wedding breakfast. Tell him.
He stays, Bill, if he chooses to behave himself.
May I, as a friend of the family, have the privilege of calling you Bill?
With pleasure, sir, I'm sure.
My own pet name in the bosom of my family is Sonny.
Well, why didn't you tell me that before? Sonny is just the name I wanted for you. Bill, I'm not going into the hall until there are enough people there to make a proper little court for me. Send the Beadle for me when you think it looks good enough.
Right, ma'am.
The bishop said I was to tempt you, Anthony.
Woman, go away.
Anthony, when other lips and other hearts their tale of love shall tell.
In language whose excess imparts the power they feel so well.
Though hollow hearts may wear a mask, 'twould break your own to see in such a moment. I but ask that you remember me. And you will, Anthony. I shall put my spell on you.
Do you think that a man who has sung the Magnificat and adored the Queen of Heaven has any ears for such trash as that, or any eyes for such trash as you, saving your poor little soul's presence? Go home to your duties, woman.
Anthony, I adopt you as my father. That's that talk. Give me a man whose life doesn't hang on some scrubby woman in the next street, and I'll never let him go.
That's enough. You have another man to talk to. I am busy.
Oh, why aren't you like him, Sonny? Why do you hang on to a scrubby woman in the next street?
I must apologize to Billiter.
Who's Billiter?
A man who eats rice pudding with a spoon. But I've been eating rice pudding with a spoon ever since I saw you first. We all eat rice pudding with a spoon, don't we, Soames?
We are members of one another. There is no need to refer to me. In the first place, I'm busy. In the second, you'll find it all in the church catechism, which contains most of the new discoveries with which the age is bursting. Of course, you should apologize to Billiter. He is your equal. He will go to the same heaven if he behaves himself, and to the same hell if he doesn't.
And so will my husband, the coal merchant.
If I were your husband's superior here, I should be his superior in heaven or hell. Equality lies deeper than that. The coal merchant and I are in love with the same woman. That settles the question for me forever.
You don't believe in women, do you, Anthony? You might as well say that he and George both like fried fish.
I do not like fried fish. Don't be low, Polly.
Woman, you do not presume to accuse me of unbelief. And do you, Hotchkiss, not despise this woman's soul because she speaks of fried fish? Some of the victims of the miraculous draught of fishes were fried, and I eat fried fish every Friday and like it. You're as ingrained a snob as ever.
Oh, my dear Anthony, I find you merely ridiculous as a preacher because you keep referring me to places and documents and alleged occurrences in which, as a matter of fact, I don't believe. I don't believe in anything but my own will and my own pride and honor. Your fishes and your catechisms and all the rest of it can make a charming poem, which you call your faith. It fits you to perfection, but it doesn't fit me. I happen to like Napoleon, to prefer Mohammedanism. I believe the whole British Empire will adopt a reformed Mohammedism before the end of the century. The character of Muhammad is congenial to me. I admire him and share his views of life to a considerable extent. That beats you, you see, Soames. Religion is a great force, the only real motive force in the world. But what you fellows don't understand is that you must get at a man through his own religion and not through yours. Instead of facing the fact, you persist in trying to convert all men to your own little sect so that you can use it against them afterwards. You are all missionaries and proselytizers trying to uproot the native religion from your neighbor's flower-bed beds and plant your own in its place. You would rather let a child perish in ignorance than have it taught by a rival sectary. You can talk to me of the quintessential equality of coal merchants and British officers, and yet you can't see the quintessential equality of all religions. Who are you, anyhow, that you should know better than Muhammad or Confucius or any of the other Johnnies who have been at this job since the world existed?
Oh, George will like you, Sonny. You should hear him talking about the church.
Very well, then. Go to your doom, both of you. There is only one religion for me, that which my soul knows to be true. But even irreligion has one tenet, and that is the sacredness of marriage. You two are on the verge of deadly sin. You deny that?
You forget, Anthony, the marriage itself is the deadly sin, according to you.
The question is not now what I believe, but what you believe. Take the vows with me and give up that woman if you have the strength and the light. But if you're still in the grip of this world, at least respect its institutions. Do you believe in marriage or do you not?
My soul is utterly free from any such superstition. I solemnly declare that between this woman, as you impolitely call her, and me, I see no barrier that my conscience bids me respect. I loathe the whole marriage morality of the middle classes with all my instincts. If I were an 18th century marquis, I could feel no more free with regard to a Parisian citizen's wife than I do with regard to Polly. I despise all this domestic purity business as the lowest depths of a narrow, selfish, sensual, wife-grubbing vulgarity.
Oh, indeed. Then you're not coming home with me, young man. I'm sorry, for it's refreshing to have met once in my life a man who wasn't frightened by my wedding ring. But I'm looking out for a friend, and not for a French marquis. So you're not coming home with me.
Yes, I am.
Oh, no.
Yes, think again. You know your set pretty well, I suppose, your petty tradesman set. You know all its scandals and hypocrisies, its jealousies and squabbles, its hundred of divorce cases that never come out in court as well as its tens that do.
Well, we're not angels. I know a few scandals, but most of us are too dull to be anything but good.
Then you must have noticed that just as all murderers, judging by their edifying remarks on the scaffold, seem to be devout Christians, so all Christians, both male and female, are invariably people overflowing with domestic sentimentality and professions of respect for the conventions they violate in secret.
Well, you don't expect them to give themselves away, do you?
They are people of sentiment, not of honor. Now, I'm not a man of sentiment, but a man of honor. I know well what will happen to me when I cross the threshold of your husband's house and break bread with him. This marriage bond, which I despise, will bind me as it never seems to bind the people who believe in it and whose chief amusement it is to go to the theaters where it is laughed at. Soames, you're a communist, aren't you?
I am a Christian. That obliges me to be a communist.
And you believe that many of our landed estates were stolen from the church by Henry VIII?
I do not merely believe that. I know it as a lawyer.
Would you steal a turnip from one of the landlords of those stolen lands?
They have no right to their lands.
Well, that's not what I ask you. Would you steal a turnip from one of the fields they have no right to?
Well, I do not like turnips.
As you're a lawyer, answer me.
I admit that I should probably not do so. I should perhaps be wrong not to steal the turnip. I can't defend my reluctance to do so, but I think I should not do so. I know I should not do so.
Neither shall I be able to steal George's wife. I have stretched out my hand for the forbidden fruit before, and I know that my hand will always come back empty. To disbelieve in marriage is easy. To love a married woman is easy. But to betray a comrade, to be disloyal to a host, to break the covenant of bread and salt is impossible. You may take me home with you, Polly. You have nothing to fear.
And nothing to hope?
Since you put it in that more than kind way, Polly, absolutely nothing.
Like most men, you think you know everything a woman wants, don't you? But the things one wants has nothing to do with marriage at all. Perhaps Anthony here has a glimmering of it, eh, Anthony?
Christian fellowship?
You call it that, do you?
What do you call it?
Now, Polly, the hall's full and they're waiting for you. Make way there, gentlemen, please. Wave with that worshipful Meredith. If you please, my lords and gentlemen, by your leave, ladies and gentlemen, way for the Meredith. Curtain. Thank you, one and all, for a splendid reading. Sorry with the technical difficulties again. What are you going to do?
Great play.
Yeah, very interesting play.
Really interesting, yeah.
Oh.
Even the best tech people I know in New York have tech difficulties, and they'll be the first people to tell you that.
Yeah.
Guys, special thanks to Ben and Deborah.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Great job,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, lovely reading, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everybody. Only 3 hours and 15 minutes, that one.
Well, it would have been shorter because we had those.
It was going to be 4 hours.
True.
I knew it wouldn't be. But,
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was the origin of "She Who Must Be Obeyed."
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I always thought it was John Mortimer. Yeah.
I don't know. Angus, are you there?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
She Who Must Be Obeyed. Do you know the origin?
No, it was Rumpole of the Bailey who used it, who popularized it.
Absolutely. That was after Shaw. So
That long after Shaw. No idea where it comes from.
Are we sure it might be Dickens?
No, I bet it goes back to Hammurabi. I mean, as soon as there was marriages, somebody.
Yeah. All these quotes that we attribute to people tend to go back farther. I've been going through quotes attributed to Shakespeare, you know, that famous thing.
Oh, wait a minute. Isn't it from the novel She Who Must Be Obeyed?
Oh, Rider Haggard's thing?
That's what Wikipedia says.
Yeah.
When was that written?
1886.
All right, so that predates this.
Mm-hmm.
Could very well be it. I think that might be it because it's She